Okay, well, let's begin the Tiburon Parks Open Space and Trails Commission meeting for today, June 16th, July 16th. It's July 16th. David, can you begin roll call?
Chair Judge,
Here.
Vice Chair Holmbrook,
Here.
Commissioner Burr, Commissioner Moon,
Here.
and Commissioner McInerney is absent so far. She may join us at a later time.
Okay, do we have any oral communications?
Yes, and these are for matters that are not on the agenda.
Okay, so yeah, this is the time for members of the community to come and raise something that's not on the agenda tonight. And for possible future agendas. Oh, please introduce yourself.
I don't know if I, Is this Mike?
Is your mic on?
Is your mic on? Just want to make sure you. Hi, wow. My name is Parker Pringle. I'm here to ask the post commissioners to take a look at jurisdiction over the issue of valet parking use of parking within and adjacent to Shoreline Park on Paradise Drive and Marwest Street. This is regarding the Caprice's encroachment permit to use the lot at Marwest and Paradise Drive for valet parking, which is currently before the town council and being revised. I think you guys should take a look at that because it has to do with public access to Shoreline Park. And there's a conflict between the use of those parking spaces by the public to get to Shoreline Park or anywhere else. And the Caprice, both their own patrons, their employees, and their valet service. And I think you guys are pretty well situated to analyze that situation in depth. And it's a pretty thorny issue. And I think your help would be, or your analysis of that would be useful. Specifically, this is under the duties and functions of from the resolution establishing post. And it's number 1D, where it says submit periodic recommendations to the Planning Commission and Town Council on matters of policy pertaining to park and open space lands. Engineering manager Ishu informed me before the meeting that there's likely going to be a town manager's report to the town council at the next meeting, indicating that the Caprice is going to have to take their application for the encroachment permit to the Planning Commission. So, you know, this might be something that you guys could take up and supply the Planning Commission with your thoughts. And I think it would be useful. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else want to make comment on something that's not on the agenda tonight?
Master plan process on.
We have the master plan and McKegney Green update on the agenda. Okay, anyone online would like to make comment on something not on the agenda?
I see none.
Okay. Great. Do we have any staff briefings, David? I know we have a commissioner briefing. I'll get into that next.
Yes, actually, I do have one staff briefing.
Great.
This is related to the Greenwood Beach Road Beach Restoration Project out there at Black East Pasture. I was contacted by the senior engineer who's in charge of this from the County of Marin, and he received some good news from the state that they received full construction funding for this project. They are currently right now, we are circulating all of the environmental paperwork for it. Should be completed by the beginning or middle of August. Design work right now, they're about 65% in the design work. anticipating to have 100% design work towards the end of the year, and then we'll come back here to post and show what the final design is going to look for, which hasn't changed much from 3 years ago when we came out here, but it'll be a good refresher for you to see how it's going to look. They're slated to start their construction project in summer of next year, 2025. We have been working with the Parks Master Plan Consultant, WRT, and they have been in constant communication in regards to the beach restoration and trails and how everything will interconnect and lock in together. So we're very excited about it. It's about a $1.3 million construction project. The state is also going to provide the town with money to maintain and service the area if needed for minimum of 3 years, possibly 5. So we'll get some funding for that as well. The county is the lead on this project. So they will finish up the design, be the construction management, go out to bid, get everything for us. The town will just be basically the accountant and make sure that the money's spent correctly and accurately for all the different phases of this project. They anticipate the project to last probably a couple months. But we'll have the county out here towards the end of this year in our November meeting to give an update. And we actually will be going to town council in September with this grant for them to accept it so that we can get this free grant money for this project. Besides that, we do have a streets paving project that's going to start here in towards the end of this month. It's a small paving project. It's mostly all up near Blackfield area. So it won't affect anybody down here towards the end of the peninsula. But that project should be about 2 weeks long. It'll start the last week in July and it'll be completed before school starts. So those are 2 briefings that I have.
Just to interrupt you real fast. So Angela just sent me a text and saying that she was trying to get on and that the link doesn't work and the public link does not work either.
I'm going to send her a link real fast right
Okay.
now.
And then while you're doing that, I was wondering if I could just tee up a question to you, if you could maybe just give a high level summary of that beach restoration project so that, but you maybe send the link to Angela and then just so everybody, so that for the record, people are aware of it, or if they want to find additional information on it, they know where to go and find it. Cause I looked for it and it was in the agenda from 2021, or 2020, actually, I think November. Which is when they first presented it to us, I think. So. Yeah. Thanks for those in the room for your patience. Angela says she's in as a
Okay, let me
member.
promote her.
Yeah. Thanks, David.
Let's see.
I wonder, do you think that other members of the public would have a problem with that link too? Is there a way to?
No, this was a panelist link. It's,
Okay.
yeah.
So at a high level, David, what the beach restoration project? I mean,
You guys, I went to the town website to use the link because I couldn't find the panelist link and it didn't work from the town website.
Oh, it didn't. Okay. We've got 5 attendees right now. I'll
Okay, so maybe it was just, I don't know, maybe it's my locale.
Eastern time zone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this beach restoration, they're calling it a beach restoration. By no means will it be a beach restoration like Stinson Beach or a destination area. This is mostly an erosion control type project to save the properties and the shoreline that we have currently around Blackie's Pasture. What they're going to go do in there, it's going to be all nature-based with special different kinds of sands and rocks that they use out there so that the wave action pulls the material out and then pushes it back in. And it's going to be actually inviting. Yes, it'll be nice. But you'll still have the mud flats in there when it's low tide. But over, and we're gonna bring in some nice long eucalyptus trees in there, logs in there for protection again. So it's designed by a naturally world-renowned designer that goes all over the United States and Europe and designs these beach restoration projects. But overall, this is mostly a resilient project to help the erosion on our shoreline and actually promote more wildlife in the area and actually allow citizens of this county and beyond to enjoy, that special place we have out there where we can access the water. We're hoping maybe at the next September post meeting, I'm going to get kind of an exhibit from the county of where they're at their 65%, and we can take a look at it. And I'll make it not a discussion item. This way we can talk about that. But it's a very nice project. We're very lucky that $1.2 million free money for us to improve that area. And again, they are working with WRT, our consultant, and providing additional pathways through there. We have been reassured that it will not affect the homes that are directly behind it. This is a shoreline project where it'll actually benefit the properties there behind them.
Great, thank you. So let's move to the next agenda item. We need to approve the minutes from the last meeting. And I don't have the date of that. Let's see.
May 29th.
May 29th. Thank you. We need to approve the minutes from the May 29th meeting. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from May 29th.
Second.
I'll take roll call. Chair Judge,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hornbook,
Yes.
Commissioner Burr,
Yes.
Commissioner Moon,
Yes.
Commissioner McInerney.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Excellent. Okay, so we're going to go to the agenda. The first discussion item, or the first item on the agenda, on the planned agenda portion, is the discussion item. And we're going to, the post subcommittee on the Parks and Recreation Master Plan is going to provide an update with new information about this big project to assess our park system and determine possibilities for future upgrades and additions. So I will just toss it to the subcommittee. Commissioner McInerney and Commissioner Hornbrook, if you want to begin the presentation.
Thank you. So we, as the subcommittee, met at the end of June. Other members of the subcommittee include Councilmember Jack Ryan and Councilmember Isaac Nikvar. And we met with the WRT consultants and their team going through a presentation. And actually, they recently updated the presentation based on our feedback and also condensed it for ease of communication. So I'm glad they did that. Angela, anything you want to talk to just to tee that up, or do you want me to start going through the slides?
Do you want to maybe just summarize the purpose of the project?
Oh, well, so sure. So for those, the goal with the Tiburon Parks and Recreation Master Plan is that for a number of years, we've wanted to have a mechanism to help when new ideas came to post and also to the town council to help prioritize those and put them in location. So a great example was a gentleman came forward, figured out everything to do to put a sand volleyball court, which is a great idea. There's one over in Sausalito. There's a bunch of courts over in the College of Marin. And it would be a fantastic idea, but we weren't quite sure where to put it because there was no master plan of where's the best place to put those in our lovely parks that we have and open space. Additionally, with the purchase by the town of the settling ponds at the sewer district, there's more accessible land, flat land, which is a premium for those of us who live here, to find a location for that. So as a result, with the current post members at the time pushing with the town council, is that we got this added to the agenda. One of the people that was responsible for that is now a council member, Isaac Nickfar, as well as Commissioner McInerney. Angela, did you want to add any other pieces on the background on this?
Yes, just, we were having a lot of ideas come towards us and it became kind of this hodgepodge, as I like to call it, of things that were happening in the park. And I really felt like the best vision for Tiburon going forward would be to have a plan of when these ideas come forward, where would they fit? And so a lot of people might be misconstrued that we're putting in all these ideas all at once, and that's not anything that we're anticipating. But if these ideas come to fruition, where would they fit within our park system? Where is a good place to put them? So that's where this plan came as coming about to being developed.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. So let's see if I can get the clicker button to do what I want it to do. Do I need to point at you, David, or is it on the side? Well, I don't know. On. See something else. Yeah, we've got mold. You can just go to the next slide or the next two slides. Yeah. So the first slide, well, this is just a view of the lovely location that we're super fortunate to be part of. Thanks, David. And then this is the agenda. If you want to go to the next slide. So I think for everybody here and for those on the phone, is that this has been an ongoing process for a while. You're going through. Thanks. Yeah. And we're getting near the end of this process, which is great. There is a town council meeting that will happen in August, which I think is important for those in the room here and also on the phone to think about when you look at this piece, as well as comments and things that are important to you, to then start working on those, because comments from the public are incredibly important for the decision making by the town council. So as you see, that's where we are on the schedule. So the consultants, which has been great, is we come together with a framework, like, why are we doing this piece? What is it? As Angela mentioned, it's like, where would it fit within our park system and the open space system? And how would you go about doing it? What's the total cost of ownership for that piece? Not just the capital cost, but also ongoing maintenance of that piece. So it's important for us to consider those components. And then Angela, also just want to tee up, if there's any point where you want to, if I don't ask you, please interrupt me if I miss something, but I'll just kind of continue going forward.
And I apologize that I'm on the Eastern time right now. I'm like, it's a little late.
No, but I just want to make sure that if there's anything that I miss, but I want to also keep us going forward. Okay.
I'll butt in. Thank you.
All right, cool. So one of the things that the consultants have put together is like, what are our guiding principles on all these pieces? And I think this is important. And also I'm kind of like at the same time looking at my computer so I can go through these. So, I mean, first and foremost is the enhance integrate park experience, that people know where the parks are, that there's amenities there that make things easy for them to do things, that bathrooms are nearby, that they're accessible. That there's also other recreational amenities. We know that we meet some of the needs of the members of the town, but not all the members. And there's some great survey data that the consultants did for us on that. Again, also recreation programming. So we've been fortunate. And for those of you who don't know her, Jessica Hotchkiss, who's the executive director of the ranch, is a fantastic person in general, but also just putting together all the planning that she does within the ranch. And then Crystal Duran, who's the executive director of our library, does a fantastic job as well. And we've been fortunate that those two actually communicate and work to each other in making sure and enhancing the programs that we have. So we're super fortunate to have such great leaders in our community. Access and safety is also a critical principle of what we're doing. So in terms of that, it's like how easy is it for people to get to? So there's a park, Cypress Hollow Park, it has very easy access for people who have small kids because it's right next to the street. So it's very easy to walk with a 2-year-old who weighs about maybe 40 pounds, 50 pounds. Trying to remember how when my kid's 15, 30? 30 pounds. Well, I don't know. My kid weighs 140 pounds now and is a couple inches taller than I am. I can't remember that long ago. So it's being able to have access for them as well as other amenities and features there. And then also safety, right? So and this is part of the discussion and even our own assembly member, Damon Conley is part of this in the County of Marin, is trying to figure out like, what do we do for like bicycle safety and speed and access on those components. So it's really important for the plan to examine that because we all know that, I mean, my first introduction to Tiburon was riding on a bicycle 20 years ago when I lived in San Francisco coming through. And then also environment and sustainability, right? So that's a key part of all these pieces. And remembering all the different access of parks in which it's an active area in which it's similar to the McKegney Green or others. And then also all the great open space that we have here in our town, the Tiburon Ridge, and also including the county open space too, because there's both a collection of town open space and county open space. And I think we're all very fortunate to have all these. Angela, anything that you'd like to talk about the guiding principles that the consultants put together?
I think you did a good job. Oh, yeah, I'm not muted. I thought I was muted. Yeah, you're doing a great job.
Okay, so as part of that, there's a deeper dive into kind of the park experience, right? So one of the key components is maintaining, and this is, I think, very critical for folks to remember, and this is what we heard from the surveys and also public comments, is maintaining the open and peaceful quality of Tiburon's parks and open space. There is a nice, great bucolic feeling, and actually the gentleman who spoke earlier today, the open space about like at Shoreline Park. I mean, we see people who come here and just stare out and look at what a beautiful place that we live and enhancing that and not taking away from that. And I think that's a critical part that the consultants captured. And I think it's an important part to remember that. And we're fortunate on that. And we're also fortunate with all the other county and town open space that we have on ridge lines that you can go and see through that, right? So in the county Old St. Hilary open space, you can go up at that top of that ridge, you can see 3 bridges. It's pretty fantastic that we live in such a lovely place that we can do that. Clear and welcoming park entrances and orientation. There's many parks in our system in which people are like, where is that park? I didn't know that park was there. Bel Air Park would be an example of that. Creating a cohesive signage and other wayfinding pieces that's tied into the other one. And also making sure that they're strategically add accessible and inclusive amenities for all people in our community of all ages. So for toddlers to people who are retired, to people who are able-bodied and people who may not be able-bodied, may need help and assistance to do things. It's making sure that they're all inclusive with access. And also then strategically adding things that are unique to what we have here. So one of the items, and we'll touch base on it a little bit later, is that we have access to water, but yet we don't have any public dock areas to launch a kayak or a stand-up paddleboard. So it's kind of an amenity that we're missing. And that's what the public has told us that. And we've heard that. I'm going to go to the next slide, Angela.
Great.
But also tell me to speed up too, if you want me to.
No, I think you're great.
Okay. So recreational amenities, and using and this kind of touches on that, is using a decision-making framework, and we'll go through that decision framework at the end of this presentation about what is important to the public, what is an unmet need, and what is that priority of that unmet need. And do we have space and availability to do that unmet need? So I'll use a far end one. Some people have said like, well, gosh, it'd be great to have a golf course here. It's an unmet need, but it may not be practical to have in our town because there's not enough space. So, I mean, that's just, so it's important to have that consideration there. Also important to consider neighbors and noise and access. So we heard that definitely from a number of communities in which things have been always undeveloped. Adding and enhancing existing playgrounds. So there's some great playground structures. I mentioned Cypress Hollow. It's a great little tot playground, but it's also nearing its end of its useful life. So we should think about that and make sure that they're again safe and accessible for all. And then working within neighboring jurisdictions to create good water access, as I mentioned earlier. So it's also not just Tiburon, but talking with Belvedere. There is a dock over in unincorporated Marin County in the Strawberry area. So there is access there, and that maybe end up being what we had. Also, there's also recreation amenities in neighboring jurisdictions that maybe we can share and collaborate with on, whether it's pools, whether it's play structures, whether it's fields. I mean, that's also going on right now. So for example, the Tiburon's Little League teams they don't play on any town fields, they play on school fields. So the Reed Union School District, and they play on the Strawberry Recreation District fields. So there is an opportunity to collaborate on that. And to make sure that we're capturing the unique things. And it's finally establishing and improving trail connections to downtown. So for any of you who have walked Tiburon Trail Ridge, that's not a total connection. Or maybe if you're coming down Gilmartin, you're like coming down from the hippie tree. Well, first you have to walk on the road for a while. And then there's a little bit of a sidewalk, and then the sidewalk goes away, and then there's no crosswalk to get across to the old rail trail. There's no connectivity also then coming from there to downtown. As a priority and as a guiding principle, enhancing those trails. Recreational programming. So I mentioned the ranch and the great work that they do, and a lot in the library as well. And there was a mention from a number of folks in our town of like, gosh, wouldn't it be great if all this programming was put together? And so it's an ease of access to do that, increasing the community awareness of these programming, and then basically bring together all those different entities on that. So this is really focused on what the ranch does. Access and safety. So I talked about this in some of my opening remarks going through this presentation. And then also it's in the last bullet point I think is very important is in enhancing the access at Tiburon's open space network for better on-street pedestrian access routes. So some of those are somewhat challenging or somewhat difficult to do, or there may not be amenities by them. So I'll think of one example over by Good Shepherd. As you go up to there's no trash can, there's no dog bag dispensers, and there's limited parking over there. Maybe figuring out a better access to that. Or even for the county open space too, and maybe having the town work together with the county for some consistency on those. And then finally, again, environment and sustainability. So protecting sensitive natural communities and habitats, which you'll see later in the plan that our consultants have identified. Trying to incorporate some stormwater mitigation for those who know that we've been fortunate that we haven't been inundated by too much of the king tides, but that will become more prevalent. And then finally, just creating a maintenance plan to establish standards for ongoing maintenance and amenities. We definitely heard from the community that, hey, these parks are great, but you guys don't maintain them well enough. And we also saw from the data that they don't maintain them enough. And again, I'll give a plug to the green team. We're fortunate that we have a volunteer group of people that actually add up to 1 FTE for the entire year and provides additional funding for basically maintaining our parks. And we're fortunate that that team is here. Angela, is there anything that you want to touch on these bullet points, or did I
think that's great, but just for the general public, FTE means full-time employee.
Oh,
So
thank
the
you.
green team collectively with their volunteer hours do what a full-time employee would do for the town of Tiburon. And they have written us a letter asking us to not increase their workload because they are already overworked with the volunteers that they have. So we could either get more volunteers or hire more people.
So the town would need to hire more people. So if we think about new amenities, we have to think about not only the capital, but also ongoing maintenance and operation. Yeah, and thank you for, I dropped into my business jargon. All right, so priorities. So this is, so the approach on this is like, what is the priorities that the town has spoken to, both with survey data, which was done, as well as a number of different pop-ups and meetings here in chamber, but also like at the Friday Nights on Main, which is the second Friday, I believe, in June. They took over basically the Chamber of Commerce's little kiosk there at the end of Main Street, on the lower Main Street. And they basically, people were coming in, writing things on a whiteboard to add things, and it was great. I was in there at least, I'm going to say at least 20 or 30 people walked in while I was just talking to our consultants. So it's great that other people are finding an access to give their feedback, as well as online. And those of you, I mean, there's still the placards over at Tether Park, I think, the stand-up sandwich board. And again, the goal here with all of this is to get as much feedback as possible from the town and be totally transparent on how we're capturing this information. So recreation amenities, priorities. I probably should pull this up on I can't see that far. Here. Bear with me for a second. Sorry about that. So these are the priorities in which it was basically a high priority from the town. And also that we received from different data from some folks. So you see that playgrounds, so the playgrounds wasn't specifically on the questionnaire. That's why it says NA. So in the survey that they did, that's why it says NA. But it's clearly a piece that people have said in the different meetings, different pop-ups, all these pieces, like that's really important for us to do. I mentioned the kayak stand-up paddleboard launch. The survey marked it as the most important unmet need in town. And also people repeatedly said it in the meetings. So that's why that's second. So you'll see like, so some things say medium, but they're on this sheet and it's like, well, some things that maybe were on the survey were lower, but were very important. So that's, now that I've got something in front of me, I can see it. Should have brought my glasses. There we go. Which is the picnic area and shelters, right? So people, they put it as it's pretty important on the survey, but in all the meetings that we had with face-to-face with people, they're like, we really want more picnic tables and shaded structures over that. In fact, the green team actually brought to us a request for a shaded structure. And we said, that's great, but we need to hold on for a second and see what other shade structures we want to do so we can be consistent on this and have it be part of the strategic plan. So it's not necessarily a ton of more picnic tables, but it's just like, we need some shade. And as everybody knows, out in Blackie's pasture, there's some picnic tables that are just right past the creek there. I mean, there's no shade there. I mean, I've been to 10 years ago, I was at a birthday party and it was like, it was tough. It was hard. So, other things that are there that are again, high priority is multi-use paved trails and multi-use unpaved trails. So again, a high priority from the town. A swimming pool was identified as an unmet need. And there's lots of folks here and there's public comment that we've received that are like, yeah, we need a pool. We want a pool. So it's trying to figure out where that is. And that pool was also identified as very important in all the pop-ups and other things that we've had as well.
Also, Chuck, it was identified as #1 in the, sorry, there's a freighter coming into the harbor. I had 2 kids do a middle school Del Mar survey, and they identified the swimming pool as their #1 priority with 130 plus kids answering the survey.
There you go.
So it is a full across the board community high need, whether we figure out how to partner with local pools or whether we decide to buckle down and figure out where to put a pool in Tiburon.
Yeah, and I think that's the important piece on this is just because this is on this list doesn't mean like, well, the town will have to do it. But it's important to identify like, this is what the community said. And if we're going to do this, how do we go about doing this? So like, for example, as Angela just mentioned, there's a swimming pool, there's pickleball courts, there's tennis courts and a community center. Well, a community center will cost $20 million. So how are we going to do that? Tennis courts, pickleball courts, and swimming pools all need flat areas that aren't going to be inundated by climate change and by the tides and aren't at the water table. How are you going to do that? These are good things so we need to address them. And I think it's important for folks in the community to ask us to say like, well, are we going to do this? Or are we just going to say like, can't do it? It's too hard. It's just way too hard. And I think that's what we need to think about. It's the same thing with the paddleboard, the SUP and the kayak launch. And town staff knows this from me specifically because I'd love to put it in a certain area, but we may not be able to physically do it because it may just be too hard. And I think as a town, we need to say like, let's do it or let's not do it. Right? It's time to go fishing. That's the better way to phrase to use. So, all right, onward. Sorry, I need to, Angela, anything on the high priorities or should we move to the medium range priorities?
Let's move to medium.
Okay. So again, these are recreation amenities that in the survey, they were like, yeah, this is really important. And then if something was on the low on the survey, but it raised up into this section, it's because again, a lot of people in these pop-ups, which is more qualitative kind of cross-sectional pieces were like, no, I really want that. So I'll jump to like the rectangular sports field, right? So soccer. People in all of our meetings said, we need more play space. We need more areas to play soccer because McKegney Green, if you're an adult and you want to play soccer in this town, there's no place for you to play because the kids, which is okay, but the kids have priority in all of the rules that we've set up. So if you want to be able to find a place to go play soccer, it's really difficult. So, and also the kids also are looking for places. So that's why that's on there. Skate parks and bike parks also lower priority on the survey, but again, a lot of feedback from people in the pop-ups that we had in the meetings that people are like, that's a really important amenity for me. You'll see this shade structures, focus on the small neighborhood parks, and then sand volleyball courts. Anything, and then there's the infamous golf course down at the bottom. So people did say in the survey, gosh darn it, that golf course is really important to me, but not in our meetings that we had with cross-sectional with all the people in town. We're like, nobody said like, yeah, that golf course is great. Let's do it. Yeah. So I think it's helpful because it helps kind of like with the collection of data from different sources to kind of figure out like where the town's pulse is on these items. Angela, anything on the medium?
I think just to also bring it, we've talked about this before, the consultants have had a hard time gathering all of our data because our surveys were mostly from older town residents, probably 55 and older, I would say, was the majority of the people that answered the statistically valid survey. And then our community engagement, we had a lot more of a younger age group, which is why we've had to kind of blend these amenity priorities. So you might see some that if you look at the rectangular sports fields, for example, and you look at the statistically valid survey and it says, well, that came up as low. But you look in the community support and that comes up as high. And that it's just the way of how we've had to adjust what our two levels of our two areas of feedback have come from. And we're trying to manage everybody and have everyone get kind of a equal playing field, so to say. Does that make sense? Is that right, Chuck? Does that make sense?
Right on. Thank you very much. Yep. And
So
again, just
if
because
it's kind of like, why is one high and one low? well, because it's kind of two different groups of residents that are answering, and we're mending them together.
And again, for everybody on the phone and here and when you look at this presentation later, this presentation is also online in our agenda for everybody who wants to look at it. That it, just because it's on this list doesn't mean that we're going to do it. This is just what the public has told us. So this will not become, what's the Six Flags? What's a place in Vallejo?
Yeah.
So, and then finally, the recreation amenities that were a lower priority. Which I was kind of surprised by a little bit with the basketball courts, because the only basketball courts in town are actually at the schools. And they're not in the best of shape either. Some of them aren't.
Or Belvedere Park.
Or which one? Which part?
Belvedere Park Community Center has a basketball area, don't they?
Yeah.
Well, but that's not the town at Tipper.
I know, but
Yeah, Belvedere does have a basketball court. And then so splash pads, environmental education center, outdoor walking track, walking and jogging track, and a diamond sports field, which is like baseball. So,
you can advance the slide. We're on still priority.
oh, my bad, everybody. I was advanced my slide in
There we
front of me, not in front of the center. Thank you. So that's for everybody here online and also in the chambers. So low priority. And again, so I think, again, this tells us, hey, yeah, these are okay, but do we really need to be, is this a big priority for what we need to be doing? Forward. Oh, David, I'm stuck again. Oh, there it goes. Oh, I'm sorry. Hello.
There we go.
There we go. Sorry. So this is on the recreational programming priorities. I'm just going to quickly go through these because it's much more of kind of the focus for what the ranch does. But again, community special events, super high priority. People wanted to know about those things, cultural enrichment activities, and senior programs, adult fitness and wellness programs, and then exercise classes for everybody. Some of these exist, but they're not like, it's not a consistent message, or they occur with different groups. So for an example, there's a great concert series at Old St. Hilary's, but it's not integrated in with any other kind of the groups. Or for another example, which I think was, which I super appreciate Jessica Hotchkiss and Crystal Duran from the library, is that they have to juggle between what they do, because the ranch is for fee services, because they have to, whatever costs them to do something, they have to charge for it because they don't get a subsidy. The library gets a subsidy of $3 million from the town of Tiburon and Belvedere. That's all very good, but they also figure out their programming based on those constraints and not overlap and compete against each other, because that would be. So it's, again, I tip my hat to both of those individuals for what they're doing. The next is kind of medium priorities for recreational programming. So more swimming, STEAM and tech classes. And some of these do exist, right? There is a STEAM lab over in the library. Fitness, adult sport leagues, and then other afternoon programming. And then I'll just jump to the last slide, which is there's a lot of things that people wanted and just trying to figure out what that is. But again, it wasn't like a big priority. So somewhat is that the ranch is meeting the unmet needs, but not totally. And definitely it was more, and Jessica would agree with this, as well as the other, and they have their own board meetings, and you guys could go to actually everybody on the phone and here in chambers, they do have board meetings that are open to the public. So I encourage you to go to those. Is more adult programming. That's somewhat for the kids is pretty good, but maybe more adult programming, which I think is a great feedback for everybody to receive. So through all those, that kind of like, what is it? Where are you going to place it, right? Which is a big challenge for all of us. Again, given the constraints that we live on here on the Tiburon Peninsula. So what I'm showing up on right now is a map of basically the town of Tiburon and it's highlighting access. And the dark blue area is like where there is high public access parking or where a bus might be going. So the 219 runs right through on Tiburon Boulevard from Strawberry. And so there's going to be some dark blue areas or lighter blue areas where there is parking and also the kind of where there's trails. But really it's the focus is like the dark blue area is like, where is there parking? So there's, as we all know, there's lots of parking downtown. Lots of parking. Um,
It's
And it-
neighborhood.
and then at Blackie's, there's a little bit of parking. But other than that, there's not a ton of like big lots in town. There's the bus. I wouldn't say that a ton of people in town take the 219, though it's a pretty predictable route. But then there's just not a lot of parking. There's some parking on the side streets. When I would coach and my son at McKegney Green, I would park in front of Del Mar on Avenida Miraflores and cross the street there, or I'd park up on Stewart and cross the light there to get to soccer games because that's the closest access. And I was the guy carrying the balls and the wagon with everything, so I needed to be close. The next is also topography, which I think is critical for us to realize, is that there are certain places that are fairly flat. And there's a lot of places in which it's not flat. And for those who have houses on hillsides and things like that, we realize that there's not a lot of flat places in town that have a lot of high access. And that's a challenge. And we have to recognize that and know what our limits are on that front. Sensitivity to noise, which I think is important as well. Weirdly, a lot of the flat areas are right next to California Highway 131. So there's somewhat of a little bit of a barrier with the road there, but we do need to be sensitive in neighborhoods in which the area might be away from California Highway 131. Or there may not be a lot of noise abatement. So this is, again, highlighting those areas where they are, where there's a sensitivity to noise. This is a critical one of the flood hazard. So they've identified in the dark blue and light blue, like where there's a lot of flooding. So as you see, there's a potential for a lot of flooding in downtown. And then also kind of in the beach area that David talked about at the beginning part of the meeting, right? So they did some floodplain look at analysis of that area. And that's highly likely that there will be, as the king tides get higher and higher, that will be a place that gets inundated, potentially with seawater or brackish seawater or bay water, I should say. And then vegetation. So where are there sensitive areas? So like we know for those of us who have walked around, and I live next to Old St. Hilary's open space, is that we live in an incredibly unique area. So like Middle Ridge, Old St. Hilary's and Ring Mountain all have something called serpentine rock, in which not a lot of stuff grows in it except for grass. But there's also some very rare plants that grow there that are not found anywhere else in the world. Which I think is a pretty fantastic and super unique, but it also means that we have a lot of responsibility as a result of that, in my opinion. So it's important to know where those are, as well as where there's some freshwater emergent wetlands. So like railroad, it's not called railroad swamp. David, what's it called over here? Railroad marsh. I don't know why I said swamp came into my mind. Marsh, right? It's very unique. It's a unique place. There's a lot of birds there. There's a lot of there's an endangered frog lives there too, I think, as I recall.
Red-legged.
The red-legged endangered frog. So based on that analysis, and Angela, do you want to, I'm going to jump into now the proposed park characteristic kind of areas. Is there anything you wanted to add on what I just went through?
No.
Okay.
I'm gonna stay quiet.
Okay. So as a result, and also based on feedback from town council in an earlier meeting, is they wanted a sense of zoning, like where would you put certain things? Just to help give guidance. So there's going to be some areas in which it's active and recreational areas, like lots of things are going to go on. What's its characteristics? Relatively flat, right? You're not going to put a playing field on a steep slope area with endangered species, right? I mean, and some of those are existing places where there already are parks. So like McKegney Green, Tether Park. You already see where things are going on there and it makes sense. Or maybe there's industrial locations like a former sewage treatment settling ponds potentially. So there are things that are already going on there. There's something called recreational 2, which is flexible and accessible. So again, relatively flat, a little bit more like potential variable for flooding or other things. So maybe but high access to, all these have high access to parking. So the area right next to the dirt lot in Blackie's pasture, which is usually either wood chips or muddy, and is mostly just an unofficial off-leash dog area, is one of those areas. It just kind of, it is a potential for that to be there. Another one then is R3, which is special recreational, which is kind of like potential. It's narrow. There's some long-term low risk. And they gave an example is like the old rail trail slope potentially. So there's a slope that comes off of that. And many of you maybe read the story in the Arc, how there's a park over in Belvedere that they're thinking of putting a slide down that park. Well, maybe we could use the slope that came from the old rail line and maybe use that hillside as a slide. And I can't remember the name of the park that's in Golden Gate Park on the eastern side of the park by the carousel. There's a great slide there, right? And there's also great slides up in the rest of the city too, for those who are looking for them. But that's a great park. It's a fantastic park and people have fun and it's a great place to be. So that's just an example of that. And then R4 is kind of a low intensity recreational area. So again, relatively flat, variable, but also kind of more just not, you wouldn't have like a play structure there potentially. It would be more kind of a neighborhood park. So like Bel Air Park, Belveron Mini Park. For those who don't know Belveron Mini Park, it's a great little place. It's where the train line used to go through, but there is a blacktop, there is a drinking fountain, there's a dog dispenser bag, and then in the back, it's just open and wild. And it's between basically Jefferson and Mercury, I think. So it's a great little park area. And then finally, R5, which is nature trails. Again, examples of these are south of Knoll area. So again, you don't maybe want a lot of activity in these areas. Keep it pretty, and it might be close to noise sensitive areas. It might be right next to a housing community that's been there. And it's always been that way as well. I think that's the critical piece on that. And then finally, ecological areas. So doesn't make sense to put things that are right next to ecologically sensitive areas. Angela, these changed a little bit from the original presentation in the nomenclature that was originally posted. Do you have any other comments? This is actually the first time I've seen these but I appreciate that they kind of took the characteristics of what we talked about. Is there anything you want to add on that?
This is still a draft and we're still taking comments on it, such as the late mail we got from 2 resident groups today. So this is not set in stone. We're still discussing it and it's just proposed.
Yeah. And it's also just to my fellow commissioners, again, your feedback on this, and and a note to the consultants. I mean, they have access. We're all being recorded. And if they're not on now. So it's important as commissioners for you guys to ask questions. And when we get to that point, if that's okay with y'all, I think we're getting to a good point here where we can stop and have you guys questions.
I like how this has changed. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
From previous slides.
Yeah. So for those who, so kind of the characteristic proposed areas. So you see how these then zoning areas have been played out into ecological areas from R1, which is kind of active and recreational. So McKegney Green, great example, to then the ecological areas. And you see all the different areas that they've highlighted. So you see the ecological areas that make sense are like Ring Mountain and then Middle Ridge. I mean, again, totally sensitive areas that you won't see any development toward, except for the only thing that would be there are like amenities that would help people find the trails, maybe some trash cans for dog waste, and maybe a bench. That's it, right? And maybe a trail connecting one point to another point. That just makes sense for those ecological, where you would have more development in potential areas like you'll see down on the lower areas like R1, which is toward downtown, or R2, which is R1 is Tether Park. It's got 2 tennis courts there now and a parking lot and a porta john and a trail that goes back to the TPC. And easy access to the CVS. So, and plenty of parking. It's unfortunate that this is such a high for everybody in the room, and I guess online you can see it. I don't know if there was,
You want me to try to zoom it?
if you want, that would be great. If you want to maybe focus in on the middle, make the, yeah, and then maybe heads, if you could maybe zoom in on like the Lineal Park area, I think that would be the best. Yeah, thanks. So you'll see like areas right next to the parking lot are more R2. In Blackie's pasture, you see some E's, but then you also see some R4s and R5s. So less development, less activity that would go on there. Just mostly bike paths or more sensitive areas. But you also see like up in the right-hand corner where Bel Air Park and Cypress Hollow are, those are small parks, not, so there wouldn't be big play structures, but maybe a small play structure and maybe a small dog run, maybe trying to eliminate part of the play structure at one park and maybe have it be a fenced-in dog run. So that kids aren't taking face plants into things that they're not happy about and traumatized for the rest of their lives for. So, or at least until they get, well, I'll stop there. Angela, do you want to do any other deep dives on this piece?
Nope.
Okay. Thanks, David. I think I'll stop. I won't click any buttons. Okay. Thanks. So here's, that's great that he put this in here. I totally did not, I forgot that he took that slide and made this here. So as you see, this is a deeper dive onto that portion, my bad on that. So again, McKegney Green, the areas of the settling ponds, makes sense to put something there that's more active, R1. R2, right next to a parking lot, makes sense. But as you move away from these access areas and parking and more toward more sensitive areas, start thinking about that more thoughtfully, about what would go there. That's the intent of this strategy, so that when somebody comes to us with an idea and we're like, sorry, we don't have any more, there's no more space for an active and recreational area. If you wanted to put something there, we'd have to take one out. Right. So that's, I mean, a great example is like Tether Park. I think I've seen 4 ideas for Tether Park. It's flat, it's near parking, it's near downtown. But if you take out one, then something goes away, right? There's going to be constituents for each one of these different amenities. Angela, did you want to I think one of the important things here, and we've talked about it, and Angela mentioned the survey with the Del Mar students, is that an important part of all these park plans is hitting all the different age constituents. So yeah, I mean, having a toddler area is great. Having a playground for kids is great. Having a flat area that people can play bocce or do tai chi or play pickleball is great too. But it's also like, where do the teens hang out? Where can they hang out and do things that that age group wants to pursue? They don't want to be near their parents. They don't want to be playing on toddler equipment, but they want to be hanging out with each other, doing things that are safe and in our community. That's the important piece on that, is making sure that they're within the community and they're part of our community. Angela, is there anything else you want to touch base on this slide?
I think it's great.
This is then kind of what's possible within these each characteristics. So they kind of laid this piece out. I just gave some examples of that. But these, again, this does not mean that all of these will go here. These are just ideas and a concept. And I don't know if they've totally upgraded this slide from that other the other slide. So, but again, an example of some bocce areas, like in San Rafael near their community center. So 4th and that B Street. I mean, near the baseball field, there's like 6 bocce courts there. It's totally packed. There's people from Tiburon who go and play bocce there. There's also a nice little playground right there. And they might be redoing that entire community center because it's on their ballot in November to potentially have a bond. But it's totally fantastic. It's packed every night. And I just know that because my son works at the Pacifics, San Rafael Pacifics, and I'm over there a lot. And it's a great use of park space, flat park space, and it's a great multi-generational location. So it's great. I'm just going to go to the next slide, Angela.
Yep, good.
So this is what's possible within the park characteristic areas. This is again doing a deep dive right into the Blackies pasture area. So you see the existing bay trail. You see the Greenwood Beach restoration piece that we just talked about down in the lower left-hand corner. And just kind of making better use of that space. It's a great space. It's part of our history, but there needs to be an evolution of these spaces as communities change and grow. And all being very incredibly thoughtful about it. And that's what, again, this process is for. I'm going to go to the next slide. This is then looking at the McKegney Green and the use of the stormwater areas. Again, these are just concepts. This is not like this is what will happen, but again, what could fit in there? Well, you can put in 6 pickleball courts. You can put a skate park. There's that slide that I talked about earlier in the discussion, right off the trail there. Maybe put in another restroom that's over there too. Not sure. One of the challenges that the teams have on McKegney Green with younger kids is the closest restroom is around the corner. You can't see the kids, which is on south of Knoll Park. And the next bathroom is kind of far away. So when you ask a 9-year-old or an 8-year-old, like they have to go to the restroom, you're like, okay. 8 and 9-year-olds are kind of like herding cats a little bit and they get easily distracted. So having a closer bathroom is always a good idea. That's why that is thought of having that there. It's nothing more than convenience and ease for the users of that field. There's also no drinking fountain either over there, by the way. So if we want to have our kids not be bringing plastic bottles and throwing them on the ground, wouldn't it be great to have a water filling station that the coaches can see you at? Again, kind of easy, I think, in my opinion, easy things for us to add a drinking fountain near the major playing field. I'll go to the next slide. This is now looking at South of Knoll. Putting a trail up to South of Knoll. There's no trail. There's no easy way to get up there unless if there's a hard way to get up there. There's not an easy way. And there's a nice concrete slab up on the top. I put nice. I'll put quotes around nice. But these are just potential things that can maybe go there. Do we maybe upgrade these playgrounds, or maybe we only upgrade one of them and spend the additional money on a different playground that's closer to parking? That's what this process is going to be going through as we finalize the strategic plan to help figure that out. And then also including things that we talked about earlier. So making it a passive area, public art installations, potentially more seating areas for people to enjoy, again, a pretty magnificent place that we get to live in.
And what we heard from the public on that South of Knoll was really keeping it less active from the residents that have been there, and we've been listening to that.
Thank you. So then finally, the last step on this is like, okay, we know what it is. We know where we want to put it or how we're going to do it. Well, it was like, how do we do it then? Understanding the cost of these. In the town, in the contract that we asked the consultants, it's like, tell us what we have. Do we have enough community space? Do we have enough fields? Do we have enough maintenance money that we're spending? And then if we want new things, how much is it going to cost roughly? So capital investment, operations and maintenance, and a replacement cost in the future if you have to replace it, right? So like a playground has about a 20-year lifespan on it. Fortunately, we don't have to meet the same threshold as like the playgrounds do for the Reed School District, because they have to do all that design with the California State architects for the playground. So it adds another layer of expense on what they're doing. So we're at least thankful for that. So this is, and again, this is all online, but this is going through like, how much would all these things cost? So a new playground could cost $300,000 to up to $1 million. A kayak paddleboard launch is variable because it depends where you're going to put it, but it could be, you know, up to $125,000. I will say that at one point, I wonder where they got that number from. The town of Tiburon did have in their budget about 10 years ago a line item for a stand-up paddleboard kayak launch that was there in their capital improvement plan for about 6 months, and then it just disappeared. But it was for about $400,000. And if you're interested in that, happy to email me and I'll send it to you. It's in the archives. And again, it's great that the town holds on to all their archives. You can see the decision-making process. So this is kind of how much things would cost. So a lap pool, $3 million. If we wanted to do like an entire pool house next to it, that's another $8 million. So things do cost a fair amount of money, and that's kind of the cost on this. I don't know if I really want to do a deep dive on any of these things. Oh, I said 20 million for the community center. Sorry, it's 24 million is what these guys put in. So a new community center would be pretty expensive for us to, and I'm not, so these are just things that they put out there. Angela, anything else that you want to highlight on this? Except for nothing's cheap.
No. Nothing's cheap and nothing's on the board of definitely happening. We're just researching what the possibilities are.
And then these are more capital improvement projects. So like, sure, you can improve some swings, you could do some other things. Those are pretty reasonably priced. They're less than $10,000. But then if you want to, again, build a gymnasium or for an entire gymnasium, that's $15 million. But if you like to do a pump track, it's $482,000. So again, just identifying the cost of all these things. And down at the bottom, it's a large community park would be $2 million. And then finally, other capital improvement projects. So a brand new field, that's 250,000 square feet, which is pretty darn big. It's $41 a square foot. It's cheaper than a house to build it, but it's still going to cost you $10 million. Roughly. So, and I think I'm gonna go back. Did I see tennis courts on these? I thought I did, but might be further. Oh, and then we also asked them to identify deficiencies in all the different buildings that we have. So it looks like for, let's see, condition to be addressed ASAP. For some of their priorities, I don't see their footnotes though, where they are on which ones. This is a new slide, which is great. But it's going through each of our different buildings. So there's the Derry Knoll Center, which is up on Ned's Way. There's the Town Hall Community Room. So there's a small room up here. The South and Knoll restroom looks like it needs some new pieces. Oh, I see. And then so a number of different things on the restrooms that need to be done. So that's pretty with the exception of the Derry Knoll Center, not massive numbers. That seems to be the Derry Knoll. We need to address that pretty quickly. The town does. So the town, both the town of Tiburon and Belvedere are responsible for the capital on that building. So as part of the joint powers authority that they've created the ranch. And then this slide, and I think we're getting near the end of the presentation, goes into a deep dive on the different, as we saw, pools was a very big piece. Pools are very expensive. So what else could the town do to be a substitute for a brand new pool? And so this goes through like, what are other similar pools and what are they doing? So the Tiburon Peninsula Club, which is right around the corner here, it has all these pieces, and are they accessible to people? Are they not accessible to people who are not members? And it kind of does a deep dive on that, which I think is just great. Frankly, I think it should be something that's available once this gets finalized, that every person who comes to town brand new would love to know what that is. So, Angela, do you want to touch base on this? I want to make sure and kind of get to the end of our presentation. So there's time for commissioner questions and questions from the town, and 3 minutes of comments from people.
Yeah, I think swimming pool was a top priority for residents, for the teens, for the survey. And it's as we saw on the other page, it could be pretty expensive, especially if we build locker rooms to go with it. So what's available within a relatively short driving distance, especially if you're looking at Strawberry Recreation or Mill Valley, TPC, Belvedere Tennis Club. So I think it was more just gathering data that maybe people hadn't been aware of. One thing that we haven't gathered from people, if Tiburon did build a pool, what are you willing to pay as a resident to have a membership there? Because we would not be able to offer the pool as free to our residents. So just something to also remember, that just because we build a pool, it's going to be a cost to maintain it and operate it, and therefore we'd have to pass that on to the residents at some point.
Yeah, so I'll look to my fellow commissioners. There's about 10 more slides, 10-ish.
I think we should try to get through those super quickly if possible, just so we can get the members of the public talking.
Yeah.
Yep.
Agreed. So I'll jump to the next slide, is just looking at fitness and gym and where are different fitness and gym areas that you can go to. The next one is also just looking at tennis courts. The ranch has 3 tennis venues, as well as they have one pickleball court, I think, down at Tom Price Park. So there's a tennis courts at Del Mar, one at Tether Park, and then the one in Belvedere at Tom Price Park. But then here's all the different courts that are around, that are nearby, I should say. They don't involve like other pickleball venues like up in Novato. And then looks like at other amenities. So both baseball diamonds as well as basketball courts. So it lists all these pieces, which I think is just helpful for the community to go like, oh, I didn't know there was that in there. And that's what you guys mentioned, Belvedere Park, because I had forgotten about that one. But I think it's good for everybody to realize where all these different amenities are. And then as part of what we were going through is not only the capital cost, but like how much does it take to maintain these lines of service? And I appreciate that they said these lines of service. So it's athletic fields, it's bridges, it's contracting with Mill Valley Refuse to pick up the dog waste from the trash bins. Always pick up your trash, always pick up your dog waste. And all these other things that they need to go through to maintain these amenities. Again, I'm totally super happy that, and many times this happens with cities, that they go like, oh, let's just build the capital, and then they don't remember about the operations and maintenance. So I'm really glad that the town is taking this seriously and that there's all these pieces and these lines of service that you have to address. So on that front, they did an analysis about like, how much are we doing? So they're doing their consulting work. So they said like, what's the recommended amount that you guys need? You need 5.51 full-time equivalents to maintain all of the open space, the hard trail services and developed parks, and the current staffing is 4.5. So we're short by 1, and that is augmented by volunteers basically, or it's not done in some areas.
Which has been a complaint.
Yes. And then kind of looking at all the different costs. So not only do we have it on the head count, but then you see like how much is the total cost for all of these pieces. So it looks at the community parks, the mini parks, the open space. So for example, many of you are aware that we contract to do fire prevention and all in the open spaces. And there's some people come out and it's about $60,000 budget. How much do you guys spend, David?
About 60.
Yeah, 60, just to take care of the broom, the French broom, or any other invasive species that are a fire danger. The total piece is that you need about $1 million, 1.2 million. Current operations, this is new actually, so it's great that the new budget is $1 million of it. So we're a little short, and also the green team does chip in $27,000. They raise money to do this, which is great, but we're still short in a budget about what the total funding should be in terms of that. So both short on full-time equivalents as well as short on total just expense of maintaining things. And then they go through some different funding strategies, like, and I don't want to spend time on this. Is that okay with you, Angela,
Yeah.
team? Yeah.
That'd be
This
great.
is an old slide. Yep.
Yeah. So we're going to go through that. So what do we finally get to is decision-making framework. How do we go about doing these pieces, which is we've talked about why we're doing this and what the guiding principles are. What are the priorities that the town has spoken to us are? Where do we put them? And then how do we pay for them? So they're kind of the methodology is like, what's a high priority? Well, playgrounds are really important. Cost estimate, kind of expensive. Where are you going to put it? In the zoning of R1 or R2. Okay, makes sense. I'll jump down to like community center. People said it was really important, but it's very expensive to put it. And you also want to put it in an R1 area, which is high access and flat and easy to get to. So all these pieces are incredibly helpful for, again, when ideas come up from the public that want to do something. Angela, anything you want to touch base on this?
Nope.
Okay. So then the next slide is the medium. So this is taking that earlier slide of the high priorities, medium priorities, and low priorities. What's their cost and where can you put them? So it's really kind of bringing all these things together, which is really what you want the strategy plan to help, again, the community and town council make a decision. Yes, we're gonna do it, or like, we just can't do that. We don't have the space for it, or we don't have the budget for it. Or yes, we want to do this, but we can't do it now. Let's come back to this in 3 years, agendaize that item, let's do it. Right?
Plan for it.
So plan for, it. Yeah. And then these are the low priority items. And then this is the final slide. So this is a new one that I had not seen, is their plan recommendations. So it's basically highlighting all the different, this is a great map too, of all the different, like what's the town areas, what's the Marin County's open space areas. So it's kind of giving a high level of all those pieces with the open spaces and trails. Again, we have a great collection of trails and open spaces in our town. We're super fortunate to have those, and we're super fortunate in Marin County to have all that space. So on that front, they just wanted to highlight that piece. But then what is the system wide and what do you want to do? Again, integrating downtown and integrating the open spaces. So yes, recreational facilities. So their recommendations from our consultants are pursue partnerships with neighborhood recreational providers for shared use of a pool or a gymnasium. Study the feasibility of 2 Tiburon community priorities, a public pool and a recreation center. So they're saying like, you should check that out and try to figure out where you want to put it. And then consider relocating tennis courts from Tether Park to other locations and using that site for a pool or other things. So Tether Park is right off of Beach, right behind the old Bank of America building, for those who are wondering where Tether Park is. Second thing is plazas and activation. And it's great. And I love all the diversity and inclusion activities are happening. There's actually one happening this Sunday, yep, on the 21st, is using Zelensky Park for a lot more events, which is great. I don't know what they thought about that in advance when they designed everything here, but it's great that it's being used that way. Got plenty of parking, and it's an open space, and it's flat, and it's got easy access for trucks and other things to come in here. And there's not a ton of neighbors that are gonna to be worried about it, except for probably the people up on Vistazo West and those guys. So I live on Vistazo West, which looks right down on this, but it's all good. We love hearing noise. It means that the town's alive. Looking at Tiburon Boulevard and Fountain Park and maybe making more of an event space there. So again, downtown, focusing activities downtown, and maybe adding a playground or a restroom in Shoreline Park. Not many people are aware of where that public restroom is. I think it's right next to Sam's, kind of down the boardwalk right there. People aren't really aware of that. So maybe putting something closer in. And then finally, on the system-wide, again, downtown, paths and paseos, making it more welcoming for the trails where they begin and where they end. Next slide is our small parks.
Mm,
What happened here?
I don't know. I feel like it didn't go through right.
Yeah. I would say that we need to
we're
talk to
gonna
our
do that one.
consultants on that.
It would be Bel Air Park, Belveron Park, and Tether Park, and Cypress Hollow.
And I
Yep.
think that was captured in previous slides, so maybe we can just try to wrap.
Yeah, so we'll wrap on that. So, or go to the like top priorities and easy wins, which again is what our consultants heard from us. They're like, we want to be able to do things. We want to be able to, the town members of our community have said, study's great, the planning's great, thanks for the inclusion, but can we also do something? Can we also have some things going on here? And so some things are, so they kind of identified things that easy to win, no brainer, let's do this. So creating a welcoming trailhead gateway to access Old St. Hilary's and larger open space network. Using, as I just talked about, using Zelensky Park. And then it goes on, and point B is like, it may take some more consideration, but a larger effort, but it should be addressed next. So what's like the next thing you should do? So focusing on Old Rail Trail, it's implement design interventions to slow speeds. I think all of us have been on there. One of the ideas is actually to, in certain sections, to pull the bicyclists away from the trail onto a different trail. And for any of you who ride from Sausalito to Mill Valley, they've actually done that. There's actually a little sign that says you want to go fast, go left here, you go to Tam High School and you get on Camino Alto, Miller, and then get onto Camino Alto immediately, as opposed to going through the high volume area, which is next to Mill Valley Middle School, where all the playing fields are, next to the sanitation area right there. So it takes the high-speed traffic away from that central area. It's a great idea. And kudos to them for figuring that out. And then adjust the Bay Trail alignment to do that. Bel Air Park. B, improve the site drainage. So must do it, but it may take longer time to do. Increase maintenance and trash removal. So that's what we've heard. That's an A. I'm just going to go through the A's. Small maintenance facilities, like a picnic table maybe. And then setting up clear rules for dogs and dog usage when they're there, and making sure that there's a sign that says if your dog goes to the restroom, pick it up. And probably there'd be maybe a little bit of enforcement. Just reminded me of Harvey Milk's plan in San Francisco. And then Belveron Mini Park, again, going through the deep part of that is on B, is maintain and enhance the landscape and trees. So it's a great landscaping in the back, but it's also got a invasive species back there. So maybe taking care of that wild area and then improving the entrance to make it more welcoming. Again, you wouldn't know it's there. You could potentially even walk right by it. And then again, this is on the small parks, is Cypress Hollow, is replace and upgrade the play equipment and surfaces. Add a small designated fenced area for dogs to keep the dogs and the kids separate from each other. And restore the lawn and improve the maintenance. Again, pretty easy win, low priority. Open space, again, all the A's is improve key trail connections, link downtown trails with Tiburon Ridge, and link segments of the Tiburon Ridge Trail. Let's try to do it. On the system-wide is I create identity for park and open space. Again, I'm just going through the A's. Improve Tiburon residents' ease of use of swimming pools at Strawberry, Mill Valley, and Tiburon Peninsula Club. Provide pickleball courts following the zoning framework, and provide a kayak and sup launch as well. Again, high priorities. They're like, you guys should do this. The community has spoken. They really want to have these things. Or figure out a way to do it quickly through policy, which is what the town council can do, as well as the rest of the community. And then convening community stakeholder meetings to establish community events. And then, is there anything else on this, Angela, as I look through it? I'm just trying to that you want to raise so that it's a point that people are like, oh yeah, I'm gonna maybe.
I'm looking at the one that says, improve safe access across Tiburon Boulevard to Richardson Bay Park is an A, easy win. Yes, that's a no-brainer. Yet we need to work with Caltrans to do that because we don't actually have the control over Tiburon Boulevard. So some of these we might need some tweaking as we go forward with more consultant workings. Like, yes, that's a no-brainer, but it's maybe not easy to do.
Right. Or maybe as a community, I recommend you all, there's another study going on the traffic on California Highway 131.
Yep.
And actually commenting on that. So that's specifically maybe looking at a easier access across Gilmartin right there. Or maybe lowering the speeds of Tiburon Boulevard, which is 40 miles per hour, right at that section. I don't know if any of you bike, but over by the Trek bicycle shop, which is a 4-lane road. I just realized this today. It's 35 miles per hour there. 4 lanes, it's 35. Our little 2-lane road with a great view is 40 miles per hour. Maybe the community needs to say like, maybe we shouldn't be driving 40 miles an hour on that road. Commissioner Burr, in your traffic study, maybe you could think about that. All right. That's it on the steps. Next steps for everybody here in the room, and I'll go to the next slide, and then process, I think is what we open it up for. You guys have questions? And then 3 minutes of comments. There's no decision. We're not like deciding like, yeah, this plan is done. It's really, this is a discussion item. So I appreciate everybody's patience and listening. Chair, I look to you for the next direction on this, but there is going to be a town council meeting on this in August, the second meeting.
21st, yeah.
21st. It's a Wednesday. So it's using your time now to say like fine tune those pieces, and also we'll try to, and again, the consultants will either they're on right now or they're going to be listening to part of this discussion. So now is the time to kind of like have them here, use this as a time of like many of these other data gathering pieces that they've had. But Chair, I take it to you of how you want to go.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Hornbrook and Commissioner McInerney. That was really thorough, very thoughtful. Thank you so much. I think the updates to this are really excellent. I'm gonna move us to commissioner questions, but I'm gonna request that commissioners keep questions to a minimum and extremely brief. And we can keep answers to a minimum and extremely brief. Let's aim for 3 minutes max total for this section, because we've had a lot of chance to ask questions. And we have people in the public, and I asked them, I saw their almost pleading nods to like move this along and let them speak and get on with their evening. So
I would just ask that we move to public comment if possible. We can ask questions during commissioner discussion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
we can, okay, great. That's a great move. So let's get right to public comments. So, sir, why don't you come forward? And then,
I need
to be
somewhere too.
Only second question is, can we turn the lights back on?
yeah, so you'll have 3 minutes. We'll
Sure.
time you and we'll let you know, with a 10-second warning. Just introduce yourself and then you can go.
Hi, I'm Andrew Thompson, former mayor and council member for many years. I, first of all, just want to say congratulations. This is really good work. You can't get enough surveys and really understanding what your community needs and then be effectively responsible. I mean, effectively, deal with it. So good job. I'm here, first of all, just to say I've been living out of the country for a while, wasn't very active. I'm back. I have a tremendous amount of knowledge about a lot of the trails and how everything came to be. I literally grew up hiking the hills with the Tethers, Dave and Louise Tether and my father, as they formulated the first open space policies on the first Parks and Open Space Committee. So here to help if you ever need any background or history. One of the things I know that the pools have been really important. And this is a pet peeve of mine, and it's just totally contrary to my own self-interest. I'm a big swimmer and I'm always like, have my own lane and practically the only person in the TPC pool. Okay. There's so many people in our community that want to be members of that club. There was no conditional use permit when I was on the council. This is relatively new, and the town put a cap on it. It is completely contrary to what we want to do to build community, to create recreation and bring our community together. There should be no cap at all. The board will self-regulate. We can handle so many more families. It is the town's fault that people don't have access to a pool. Keep that in mind. Pickleball, big deal these days. Just remember, if you're thinking about down by the Richardson Bay there, it's a wiffle ball, or any ball that's going to be light like that. It's going to be highly affected by wind. Okay, so then if you have the courts, then they're going to want big fences with big, thick, heavy wind barrier stuff. So now you're talking about structures. Just keep that in mind. The marsh, late 90s, the marsh was, there was a big push to dig out whole part of the middle of Blackie's pasture and create a big wetlands marsh. Really bad idea. Ran into a brick wall. And because, as you've pointed out in your understanding here, we have limited flat land and it is highly utilized. And so you're going to be taking that utilization away. It's not like we don't have a lot of marshes around here. Then finally, Oh, I saw it was like R4 and 5 over on south of the Knoll. You have a high access point from Del Mar there. Not a lot of parking, but it's highly accessible. So it's just pointing that out. And then finally, this is totally thinking outside the box. We have a lot more flat land. It's right here, tons of parking lots. Do we own it? No, but we didn't own this either. And I ended up being chair of the campaign to build the town hall downtown here instead of way up Ned's Way, which would have been, in my opinion, a really bad idea. So we were able to acquire this. So that's a little outside the box thinking. Just some background. Hope that helps. And if you guys need any more background, I'm here to help.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, who wants to go next, sir? Why don't you come up, introduce yourself?
My name is Greg Moore and I'm speaking on behalf of the Greenwood Beach homeowners. Great.
Thank you.
Good evening, commissioners. I have devoted my entire career to planning and building parks, public parks. So I appreciate and empathize with the efforts you've put into a comprehensive plan for Tiburon, and thank you for all your efforts. The draft plan is very well done, yet I do believe there's still opportunity for improvement and a need for some fine tuning. The Greenwood Beach homeowners letter specifically expresses our comments, concerns, and our recommendations for fine tuning, specifically the Richardson Bay Lineal Park, including the designation of what's now called character areas. The draft guiding principles and policies are also instructive. The first guiding principle: preserve the natural beauty and tranquility of parks and open space while enhancing park experience. Across the United States, when I work in parks, the 21st century urban parks are increasingly oriented to a societal need, a need for a refuge from noise and stress, a need for proven and uplifting benefits of scenery and nature, a need for nature for families and kids, and a need to improve community and social cohesion. The Richardson Bay Lineal Park has all the attributes to address these needs, but in our view, it does not identify this as a true North Star and views the Lineal Park as too much of an empty space to fill with any recreational need. Some proposed facilities do not depend on a bay view, could be located elsewhere, and are inconsistent with the adjacency to a wildlife sanctuary. The other policies speak to protecting natural communities and habitat and careful management of those areas through nature-based solutions at Greenwood Beach. And again, parks in the 21st century are increasingly nature forward and embrace nature-based solutions with plans to protect and restore natural habitat to increase biodiversity, address sea level rise, and provide for human connections to nature as a top priority. Your survey work also identified this as one of the highest priorities of people in the town of Tiburon. So the Richardson Bay Lineal Park is directly adjacent to a very important and sensitive habitat, the Audubon and Richardson Bay Sanctuary. However, the current draft plan for Lineal Park does not adequately rise to the opportunity to protect, restore, or add adjacent habitat areas, including really obvious nature-based solutions. The Richardson Bay Special Area Plan outlines many requirements to protect this priceless habitat by requiring larger, more connected upland habitat areas and a native vegetation buffer. The plan seems to lack addressing careful access management that can proactively manage access by people and dogs through proper placement of uses, low and modest barrier fencing, and design features. Additionally, with sea level rise, we need all the space we can get for shoreline adaptation. These are just some of the components in our letter that you will read, and we thank you so much for your attention and consideration. And I hit the 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Okay, sir.
Thank you. My name is Bruce Abbott. I live on Greenwood Beach Road. And I'm so overwhelmed by the grandiosity of your aspirations. I appreciate you mentioning there are some limitations on what you can do. And I would like to mention another that I have not heard that is a definite limitation, and that is Blackie's Pasture, which is the area which I'm principally concerned. is open space, protected open space. It was required by the town of Tiburon in 1972 by a bond issue. And that bond issue does provide limitations on how that land can be used. It's expressed somewhat in the referendum nomenclature, and it is defined more elaborately in the minutes of the town leading up to the introduction of that referendum. It's now been 72. It's been a long time, but we paid for that. The citizens approved that and paid for that. And the codes of Tiburon, the Constitution of Tiburon, and the courts of California have upheld the sanctity of limitations imposed by a bond issue. You cannot issue a bond for one purpose and then convert it to something else. So I urge you to acquaint yourself with the limitations articulated in the minutes and in the referendum itself. And they can be found in the archives in the main public library in San Rafael. Another issue of limitations that I think that I haven't heard mentioned, which is one which we all are aware of, that is traffic and parking. If you embark from Tiburon down Highway 131, you don't know when you're going to get to the freeway, but it could easily be a half hour or more. And this plan calls for, and it constitutes an invitation to people from the whole area to come in here, and it's going to, and a system that's already overwhelmed is going to be even worse. And then parking. I heard someone mention there's plenty of parking downtown. I was downtown Sunday, and there wasn't a parking place in town, and it's getting worse. And Black Hills Pasture's got parking, and it's got a supplemental parking, but it's largely used now by commuters. And again, this bond issue defines the amount of parking you can have. And then we get to the point of these pools, and that's going to invite more people. Where are they going to park? And how are we going to get here? So I didn't come here to throw cold water on everything, but I do invite you, and I hope is you'll give some attention to these limitations before you make too many steps towards implementation of it. And Andrew mentioned he's got a lot of experience. I've got a lot of experience with.
Your time is up, so if you could just wrap.
Okay, I think I made my point. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Do we have any, I know we've got a bunch of people. Do we want to just go in order of rows in the building? Okay. Okay.
Hi, I'm Nancy Peterson, another Greenwood Beach homeowner. And I also am really grateful for all the effort you've put into this. Reviewing it with you today was clear how much effort's gone into both the detail and the big ideas. My comments are really related to the area of Blackie's Pasture and the Richardson Bay Lineal Park. We live on Greenwood Beach Road, so we have the privilege of enjoying that area all the time and understand its value to others. There are a couple really specific comments I want to make, and in our letter, we spoke to the previous name of the zones, which have now been changed. So I'm just going to refer to that. There is a small area that is directly behind 4 of our houses at Blackie's Pasture. It was designated P1 in this plan. I assume that's now R4. That area is small. It's it's not on a regular walkway. It's an area that we're thrilled to hear about the mitigation effort that's going to occur at Blackie's Pasture, and really believe ultimately that effort should go farther down the the beach in our area because it's really rubble. But it also, it's all on Richardson Bay Audubon Sanctuary. So the access to that is closed off for about 6 months of the year. So I really would encourage you to consider looking at that as an ecological designation as opposed to whichever the one was, because I get confused when I read your numbers, but I think you had it under low intensity recreation. So I'd take a really hard look at that. I think that would be really helpful to understand that that's not really an area where there's a value in increasing use. Both because, you know, obviously we have a special interest, but also because it's a nesting area. We have killdeer there every year. It's right on the sanctuary. I also think it's a little hard to understand completely the plans for the whole Richardson Bay Sanitary District area. I think there's a huge opportunity there, and I really think it's valuable to look at that. The level of use there, how much parking is needed. We've become a parking lot on Greenwood Beach Road for when there are big events, big sports events. So I think I really have to take a look at that big idea, a deeper look, I guess, a little bit deeper dive on that to understand what the impact would be on neighborhoods. And that's about it. I appreciate you, taking our comments and holding this meeting. Thanks.
Thank you so much. All right.
Hi, thank you for the great update and the ongoing opportunity to weigh in during the master planning process. My name is Jenna. I'm a member of a local grassroots group called Parents for Parks and Rec. We have new t-shirts. We are a group of local parents who have mobilized in response to the town's development of a master plan for our Parks and Rec system. Many of our members have been engaged in the planning process since last fall. And last week, we launched a petition to articulate and gain support for family-friendly park ideas, and we currently have over 160 signatures from Tiburon and Belvedere residents. We plan to keep collecting signatures until the town council votes on the master plan in August or later. So I want to share two things today. First, we want to thank Chuck for asking the town council during its recent meeting to include money for park improvements and maintenance in this year's budget. We feel that the Post Commission is hearing us, and we really appreciate it. Second, in light of the master plan and the conversations that are unfolding, I want to share my personal thoughts about our town's recreational offerings and possibilities. Tiburon is such a beautiful town, yet there is a lack of public recreational spaces that are suitable for kids, teens, and families, despite this being a multi-generational community. A third of the households in this town have kids under 18 years old living in them, and I live in one of those households. I look around Tiburon and I see so much open space. I am frustrated that my son and I have to drive to other towns to do basic things like play in the water, enjoy an up-to-date playground near a parking lot, and host a little birthday party at a park with picnic tables. I know we have beautiful trails here in Tiburon at Lineal Park and Ring Mountain, but there's only so much walking and hiking you can do with a toddler. There are so many small and low-impact things that could be done in Tiburon to make this town more suitable for families. For one, update and optimize our neighborhood parks, including Cypress Hollow and Bel Air Mini Park. 2, add shaded picnic tables at green spaces throughout town, including Blackie's Pasture and Lineal Park, which could be used by everybody, not just families and kids. 3rd, add a kayak and SUP launch spot and a small sandy beach so our kids can actually touch the water. I know Tiburon residents are often very worried about doing anything that will affect this town's natural beauty. I want to emphasize other towns have figured out how to preserve their natural beauty while incorporating recreational spaces for kids and families. Mill Valley is a great example. They have an awesome rec center with a gym, pool, and preschool, and connected to that is a rich network of recreational spaces, including playing fields, a bike and pedestrian trail, a skate park, a boat launch, a dog park, and a playground. What a wonderful example of a multi-use space that celebrates the landscape and offers ample opportunities for people to be outdoors and support their physical and mental health. I hope Parents for Parks and Rec can help point Tiburon in the right direction. I hope our group's petition inspires town leaders to make family-friendly choices while deciding on the future of our parks and recreation system. Thanks for your time and consideration.
Perfectly 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
My name is Vanessa Carter, and I was born and raised here in Tiburon, so I have a lot of experience with the open space as a kiddo and now as a parent. I moved back to join the sandwich generation to take care of both of my parents through their decline with Alzheimer's. And so the pandemic, we lived at Blackie's Pasture and on Ring Mountain because I could take care of everyone at Blackie's Pasture, my dad and his walker and my toddler, until he started running. And then that became a little bit more complicated, but he learned to walk on Ring Mountain. So it's really nice to be here and to know that your committee exists. I feel like I should have been more involved in many pieces of Tiburon's organizing for a long time. So it's great to be here. And it's also great to feel like, oh, I'm just here to celebrate what you're doing. Like playgrounds is at the top priority. For my professional hat, I'm the Environmental Literacy and Climate Resilience Director for SFUSD. So I spend a lot of time thinking about outdoor nature playscapes and green schoolyards and how it is that we allow accessibility for everyone. So I guess part of this is not that I have the former mayor's connections, but I'm also interested in thinking, how can I help you? We have this great inspiration just across the bay at Tunnel Tops Playground. I hope you've all visited. It's so amazing. And it doesn't have to only be there. I feel like Blackie's Pasture and other locations would be a perfect spot for a natural play space that wouldn't compromise all of the ideals and the appreciation for natural spaces outside. And I know that there's a training coming up, and I'm happy to share this with you, for contractors and builders to understand how to meet all of the needs of, everything still needs to be up to code, even though it is made with natural materials. I got especially riled up recently when I went to see Reed's newish playground. My son will be starting there in the fall, and it's all plastic and it's hot, and it made me think, really, of all the brilliance and the resources here. I was surprised by that. So I don't want to see that happen again as you update playscapes. Also thinking about sort of my experience in an intergenerational household, that Blackie's Pasture was so important and also really lacking. And it sounds like you're really taking that into consideration. Obviously, I didn't live in that household with an elder who was really able-bodied, so I'm speaking to a particular subset of our community, but we do have an aging population here in Tiburon, and I want to make sure that they can keep going outside and that they can keep enjoying these spaces. And it sounds like you all do too. It also sounds like you don't need any convincing around the research of the benefits of all of this. It's why you have this position, right? So, but if there are naysayers, and I'm sure unfortunately you have them, I'm happy to connect you with the most current research around why this is so important. I made a couple of notes while you all were speaking. Oh, well, just to note that, not only did my son learn to walk on Ring Mountain, but he also attends a local forest school. And I think just helping the community understand that being outside is so important. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Emily Poplawski. I'm also part of the Tiburon Parents for Parks and Recs. Awesome job with all the research and presentation. I'll keep my remarks kind of simple, and I'll say that I support everything prior speakers have said on behalf of Parents for Parks and Rec. My comments are actually kind of in the details. So on the Cypress Hollow Park, I love how you guys are recommending improvements to the play structure and making the park more accessible. I will call out though that even with all these new amenities, the park does not have restrooms. Correct. So, thinking of people spending more time in the park, that's really of concern to me. And I won't go into what people do right now because there's no restrooms. The second thing that I'll mention is just how excited I am about the improvements for teenagers. So I have a 2-year-old, but I also know from being involved in government, it takes a lot of time for things to happen and decision-making process and thinking about it in a very tactical way. So I'm really excited for when this all gets done, because by then she could be a teenager. And I've talked to local teens, and every parent I know who has a teen, they have some like a depression issue or and statistically you see that too, but just talking to people, you see it even more because I guess the stats could be even unreported. But Zielinski Park, I really love the idea of the community events there. And I think that is a great way to bring community together and help teens as well. And then also the pool. Again, I was kind of surprised to hear that we can have more opportunity to partner with like facilities that already have pools and open up capacity for our town. So thank you so much. I'm really excited. And as a community member, I just want to offer my support as a volunteer when you need to activate those. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Mike Shepherd, like a bad penny. I'm back. You've heard me before. I live along the old rail trail on the downtown, past the downtown end of South Knoll Park. This presentation and the consultant work and all the work that you folks have put into it, it just keeps getting better. And it's terrific, and you all should be applauded for that. I don't have anything great to add, just a couple of perspectives for you to think about. One is to echo what I guess former Mayor Thompson said, which is to think about downtown. I know that's sort of beyond your remit, but from a town perspective, a great solution here would be to take one of those unused eyesores downtown where there's parking, where it would help feed businesses, and put one of these important uses there and figure out how to pay for it. And then there'd be more space in the parks to do more things that people want. Another thing, as I listened to the presentation, sort of a chicken and egg problem. How do you make good recommendations without knowing how much money is available? You know, it's kind of really hard to figure out how to do this until you get a sense of how much money is available. And when I looked at how you were going to get the money, one thing that was missing was a bond issue. And if you really want to do something good and something downtown, it's going to cost money. And the question is, are people willing to pay for it? And could it be done through a bond that spreads the benefit over the period of time that all these things would be used? There was some new stuff in this presentation that I'm not sure how much it had been vetted. One was this sort of, let's do separate lanes to control bike speed. And I see that can have some appeal. At the same time, we're not Mill Valley with unlimited space. We've got narrow spaces and bucolic, beautiful views, and setting up some bike superhighway. I don't know that that's really high on the list of priorities through a nice, quiet space. I'll leave you with my 5 seconds remaining. Thanks again for all your great work.
Thank you so much. It looks, oh, all right.
Quick, Parker Pringle. First, I'd like to second Bruce Abbott's comments about having to check permits, terms of dedication, deed restrictions, that kind of stuff that impacts what you can do with these parks. For example, Shoreline Park came about, it was dedicated as part of the Point Tiburon subdivision. And there's restrictions on what you can do with the park. And there's a Shoreline Park policy. And you need to take a look at that and have that handy when other people want to use the parks. The valet, for example, that I was talking about earlier. And Bruce Abbott mentioned some other things I don't know anything about, but I would imagine for all these parks up and down the peninsula, there's going to be these sort of nooks and crannies that are hiding down there, and they need to be unearthed. Another one for Shoreline Park, I'll send this to David, is the BCDC permit. which is still in effect. It dates back to the 80s, and it has conditions which might be really interesting to you guys for public access. One of which I don't think it exists is 2 tide steps, which 2 tidal steps providing access to the water's edge. And to me, that just screams stand-up paddleboard. If you want to send the paddleboarders off into Raccoon Straits to whatever's going to happen out there. It also says 32 public parking spaces, which is close to my own heart. Commissioner Hornbrook, thanks for the exhaustive and informative presentation. That was great. You mentioned that concrete thing on top of the south of the Knoll Park, the Knoll. My understanding, that's a cistern, and it brought to mind, is there a list of historical features in the parks that would be handy, maybe a map? So when you're talking about what you're going to do with this stuff, that there's some historical stuff there that you might want to work around. The Trestle Trail was another thing I was thinking of because you mentioned the slides. Let's see here. I second the Greenwood Beach homeowners recommendation to change the zoning to E1 for that area in front of the houses. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I think we may be through all the in-person comments, but we have to turn to Zoom and see if there's Zoom comments.
Yes, we do, Chair. We have Chris.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you guys much. So while I don't speak for the Reed Heights Tiburon Knolls Homeowners Association, I am the vice president. And we've been here for a while. Look, like so many other people, thank you guys for such exhaustive work. This is really great stuff around taking our town to continue to sort of to the next level. Just a couple of things that I think would be helpful for us living right up above McKegney and some of the R1 designated activities is in your map of what could be available. There were things such as the slides, the BMX location, and the climbing wall that were not even in the higher medium priorities. And so to even see like a zone map, if you will, of the activities that are most likely, I think would be helpful to help appreciate what is the context that's going on with this. The second is that I think, as some people brought up, one of the issues that going on in many communities around California, because I'm involved in state level stuff as well, is that you have RHNA and housing allocations, other elements along with this. And so it may be helpful, particularly for the town council meeting on August 21st, to see where this map of activities and zoning overlaps with the RHNA and housing allocation elements of what Tiburon has approved, just so that as a community, we can see where that massing evolves. And then the last piece, which I think Commissioner McInerney brought up around some of the costs and others, is there a way to assess for some of the activities, such as the larger dollar items, like the pool or the community center, and the funding mechanisms involved, what may that accrue to the households? Because as a state, we're obviously dealing with a very high tax position that we're in that is causing hurt to many families already. And so I think if our community can understand what that means from a pocketbook perspective, it would be much more helpful, because we all have desires. And look, I've got one kid at Cal Poly, another kid that's going to be a senior at Redwood. We brought up both our kids through the whole Reed School District and love it, and the access and activities. But let's just make sure that we know what the risk return element is that we're dealing with this stuff, instead of having the dollar separated from the positive attributes. And with that, thank you very much. Great job and appreciate all your guys' focus on this.
Thank you. Do we have other comments?
I see none.
Excellent. All right. Well, with that, then we're going to close public comment and we can turn to commissioner comments. So who would like to go first?
I'll take a stab at it real quick. Just for my fellow commissioners, if you'll indulge me, there's so much here that I don't know if it makes sense for each of us to like go at once and list out all your thoughts and concerns. So maybe we can kind of pick at it area by area if that's advisable to everyone and have a little bit more of a discussion on some of the issues that were raised. We're gonna phrase this as kind of a comment and then a couple of questions. And David, maybe you can chime in here if you have any of the answers. I am curious on the Blackie's limitations and the bond and how that plays into it. And I'm just curious if anybody knows, is that something that town council has looked at, and do we have anything firmer on that? I'm seeing an enthusiastic head nod. Because I want to be sensitive to whatever those limitations might be and where they extend, and is there a certain point where that line is drawn? I do think the point on that R4 section in that narrow region is well taken about it being ecological. I think, I think the letter by that neighborhood community or that homeowner association did a good job kind of outlining that. And I think there's a good case to be made there. That said, I still want to make sure we're looking at all the opportunities and the other parts of Blackie. So I'm just curious, like if there's anything conclusive that we have, or can we ask for that as this moves forward?
So as far as the 1972 bond,
yes, that
okay.
one. Yeah.
So I did a lot of research on this, probably a month's worth of research. And
like leading up to now or past research?
When this was brought up, going through paperwork up in the attic.
Okay.
And what I found was that the 1972 bond was passed to acquire lands within the Ridgeland areas from Trestle Glen up to the ridge in the area Hacienda Drive. So that's what the bond was for, to basically purchase Middle Ridge open space area, that whole area up there.
Okay.
From what I'm reading. Now, the area of Blackie's pasture, Mr. Shapiro and the Tiburon Peninsula Foundation each of them gifted 1/3 of their land to the town. That gift to the town was contingent upon the town purchasing the 1/3 interest from Mr. Connell. And they purchased it, so that means they got all 3 areas. And the only stipulation is that those 3 areas are to be used for public and quasi-public purposes only.
Okay, thank you. I should have expected a clear and concise answer.
Have some additional documentation on that Bruce has gathered. I'm happy to share that with you if it's anything different. I mean, I'm honestly, we've read it. I feel like we have something might be a little bit different than what you have.
And then we can meet, you can come out here to town hall and we can go over, probably in person is better. Okay, yes.
And I think I've read, Bruce is our neighbor, so I've read the details. To be honest with you, I think there is a question of how you. I'll just scan them and send them to you.
Yeah, not a problem. Yeah, we'll look at all those. And in the end, the town attorney will look at all these, and we will have to go to town council to amend the general plan because they have it as a passive. So that would have to
will be part of this. Okay, fantastic. Thank you for that answer. That was equivocal and much appreciated. I will say, and I'm curious other fellow commissioners take on this, that sliver that is right above where the restoration is going to be happening, which, so encouraging to hear that update also, David, great stuff. And I'm so happy they got the money in this year's budget. That is fantastic news as well. You know, that sliver makes sense to me on being, you know, to me, it doesn't seem equivalent of the other R4 areas like Belveron Mini Park, Bel Air, Cypress Hollow, South of the Knoll, all of which I think we want to see stuff in sooner than later. So just curious if anyone else has any thoughts on that, and I'll stop there.
I think to answer that one specific question, Commissioner Burr, I think it's really maybe just to put, I don't think there's any picnic table or something along those lines, I think is why it's R4
Got it.
versus totally ecological.
Okay.
So it's just really to put, because there's just not, there isn't anything there, which is nice, which I appreciate that little section there. But I think that's specifically why, because like for more like Bel Air Park, which there would be no playground structure most likely. But I think it is worth looking at, and I think that the feedback from the community was great, is potentially making it more R5 or E, which is how they've zoned it. But I mean, it is, we're going to be coming down to like, do we put a picnic table there or should we not? I mean, and we've, from the letter from the community, that sounds like, no, they would prefer to just have an open space there and not to have gatherings and things like that. So I think that that's the feedback. But it's really nothing, it's not going to be a play structure or anything like that. It's
Yeah.
not Cypress Hollow like pieces, but more kind of a light activity. So I think that's a thought on that. Angela, did you have any comments? How you doing over there?
It's a little late out here. It's 11:20. Still staying awake. Yeah, I'd like, if you could put the map up, I could talk more intelligently about it. You know, I think that the beach restoration is happening, so that's already happening, and I think something like a passive walking trail would not be invasive to what is already there. There is kind of already a walking trail. I used to take my dogs there occasionally. You know, it is still parkland, and it is still public space. You know, it's not somebody's private backyard. So how do you reconcile that with public space is in a sensitive manner so that people still have access, but people don't feel like they're getting invaded.
So I think, so David put up the slide. I think it is like making it maybe an R5 versus an E, because an E is like, I mean,
Don't touch.
yeah. Or maybe we should, the feedback that I'm definitely hearing as well is like E versus R5 is what's the differentiation there? Because it's David's got up on the screen right here. There are trails up there by the water tower.
Yep.
Or in Middle Ridge, there are trails. So maybe having a trail that makes sense. And maybe we can ask the consultants. I think a good feedback is like, what is the difference between these? You've made a differentiation here. We should understand what those are, even more so than the feedback that we gave them a current iteration ago, which was very much like, I'm not sure how we differentiate between these two. So I think that's been great.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
as we had in our subcommittee meeting, like once we label something, then it's difficult to unlabel it. So we need to be very careful when we're labeling things and be very thoughtful in how we label them, but also acknowledging that, I mean, it is public land. It's people should be able to access it in some way.
Yeah, and if I may respond on that, I think it's a point well taken on the R5 versus the rating it in E. I'll have to go check out that specific area. Again, I mean, I usually don't make it right on that little piece of land right there. I'll just make one last quick comment here. I'm not seeing any other comments on that specific piece. I mean, I'm just extremely encouraged by what we're seeing across the board here. I'm really impressed with the subcommittee's work and WRT's work incorporating like our feedback from meeting to meeting. I mean, I made a big thing last week about like, or last meeting about great seeing the zones, but can we also see, you know, what is possible in each of those areas, just to help visualize and create that excitement. And slides 27 through 31 do that exactly. So it's kind of fun to see that come to fruition. Of course, to the caller from my neighborhood, Chris, I didn't get his last name, but you know, there are some, you know, that does create then some things like where did the climbing wall come from? But I do think that that really has helped visualize things, and seeing the community engagement, particularly from Friday Night on Main, and acknowledging the distinction between what we're getting from different parts of the community really has made this a lot stronger. I mean, we have at least three more opportunities for public feedback, three more, correct? Between post and town council. And so you know, really looking forward to seeing more what the final product can look like. And I appreciate you all acknowledging and pressing that none of this means it's going to happen automatically, but this is going to give us as a town flexibility to finally make these things happen that I think so many people in this town, as we heard tonight, are hungry for. So I have a bunch of other specific comments, but I'll stop there.
I would just encourage you, Commissioner Burr, to send those comments to David. So make sure that if there's anything specific that it gets back to the consultants. So if you want to send them to David and to Angela and I, that would be awesome. Thanks.
I can shoot a couple of comments here. Just a couple of things. First, I love the natural playgrounds idea. I've been to the tunnel tops, and I think it's great to try to incorporate nature and natural materials instead of big plastic tiny things. And that's a perfect area, I think, if we're going to have playgrounds at Blackie's, to try to think through that. So I like that idea. I think we should explore that as a real possibility. Parking, I also really agree. We need to address parking. I think there's a lot of great activities and things that people are going to want to do. It seems like the Blackie's Pastures parking is already many times very full when you drive by it. When we have all these other awesome activities to do, it's going to draw more people into that area. So we clearly are going to have a parking capacity issue. So we're going to need to figure that out. So I think that needs to be a top priority if we're going to consider putting anything in Blackie's and the park there. You know, the pool and the rec center, I mean, I think that's just a separate big issue or topic that we need to, it almost has its own track just because of the magnitude and the cost. And you know, the comment that was made, and actually it was a question I wanted to ask you, Chuck, is based on that chart that was sent out. I don't know if I was interpreting it correctly, but that chart that had the pool and alternatives in our surrounding area, there were sections where like rec pool, open pool play and access to lessons and everything was all yes. So am I interpreting this correctly, that you don't have to be a member and you can get full access to all of those activities at the TPC?
That's my understanding, that you can, if you have to pay.
Right.
But if I want to go and swim with the Masters program at the TPC, I can go and join Masters at the TPC. If I want to go do swim lessons as a kid, if they have availability, I can have my kid go take swim lessons.
Right.
I think that was.
There was not any available.
But I don't think that they have access to open time.
No. So there was a capacity issue, it sounds like, from some folks just for those that are on the phone that maybe didn't capture that. So there's probably a capacity limitation. I was also interested by former Mayor Thompson's comments that there's in the conditional use permit that the Tiburon Peninsula Club is limited on capacity of people. I didn't know that, and I'm a member. So I'm kind of curious on that.
Right.
So that'll be interesting. So I think it's, as we told the consultants in sharing this information, you better make sure like the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. So I think that maybe making sure and adding in when capacity is available and those caveats to make sure that the takeaway isn't, oh, well, there's no problem here, right? As opposed to, well, there's not a problem as long as capacity is available, and making sure and understanding what that is. I mean,
Okay.
the same, does that seem?
No, that's helpful. I mean, and that goes along with the strawberry facility and some of the other facilities that was in there. Yeah, I mean, if those options exist, but there's no way to use them because of capacity issues, obviously that's a problem. But if there's an ability to leverage existing infrastructure without having to spend $30 million, I mean, obviously that there can be an elegant solution there. And even if Tiburon did build its own pool, there would be annual or usage fees because there's a high operating cost to fund those operations. And so regardless of whether we're using another facility or our own, the monthly dues or the annual dues, they'll probably be quite similar, if not more, given the high cost of build nowadays. Okay. The other question I had, or comment, just a general comment about the teen hangout area. I have teens now, and I know that probably by the time anything gets done, they're going to be in college, maybe out of college. But, and I don't know if my kids are similar to others, but just to put a place saying this is the teen hang area, like I just don't see teens necessarily just going to a hangout area per se. But I think it would be good to do some research, primary research, maybe even with teens in our area of like what would compel people to go there and hang out. I think it has to be activity driven, something that they like to do, and draw them there because that's a fun activity and everyone can do it kind of activity. As honestly, the best way to attract teens is probably have a junk food stand with sugar. Seems like all teens love that, like a snack shack. But yeah, I think if we do spend money or think about a teen area, I think a lot of primary research needs to be done, because I'd hate to just say, this is our teen hang area and we spent all this money, but teens just wouldn't necessarily go and hang out there. What else? I
I
think
think that's why they're at CVS
that's
as your junk food coming.
Oh, yeah.
That's why they're at.
No, I mean, even at the kids' high school, the number one place to hang out is the snack shack. And the number one thing that people buy is things that have a lot of sugar. I mean, that's just how it is. But I'll just pause there. There's some other comments, but I'll let other commissioners speak or make comments.
I can go quickly. So, as I said at the outset of the public comment, I think this has been a really fantastic round of additions. So great to see everything in here. The zoning, the labeling, all the different maps. So thank you so much. And thank you, Chuck and Angela. This is really outstanding work. And thanks for taking the time to walk us through it all. I think that was really important that people got a chance to see that. My only question is about R4. So the small parks are labeled R4. That includes Cypress Hollow, Bel Air, and Belveron Mini Park. And those, and I'm just wondering, it looks like R4 is designed as, or designated as low intensity. So picnic area, art installations, open lawn meadow. But R2 has playgrounds, and it just really strikes me that Bel Air Park and Belveron Mini Park, while they don't need to be destination playgrounds, and I agree, we've heard the feedback, they could have some small nature-based play features in them. They could have some more active sort of components without being destinations. And I think that if they did, instead of just being these plain lawns, that I'm getting the feeling people would just like to keep those empty lots and almost sort of treat them as their backyards. But they're not people's backyards. As Angela said, they're public parks, they're public spaces. So I do think we should consider some natural playground features that would serve those neighborhoods. And I think if we did that, those neighborhoods would see that it's a really great place to come together, to have, gatherings with their neighbors, to even, throw block parties, whatever it is. I think there's just no way that keeping those small parks as empty spaces, sort of empty lots, is a good thing. And I'll just say finally, I really appreciate everyone who came from the public to comment. I think all of your comments were really thoughtful, and we're seeing people be reasonable. Everybody wants to see more in the parks. It's just a question of where and what. And I have to say, because I've spent my many years in advocacy, that parents make the best advocates, and dare I say, moms make the very best advocates. So thanks for organizing. It's great to see your proposal include a bunch of easy wins, and I also think we should focus on those. And there's a lot that we can do in terms of easy wins.
May I piggyback off that? Yeah, I think it's actually R2, R3, R4. I think there needs to be a little bit, it needs to be cleaned up a little bit, because I mean, there's opportunities at Belveron Mini Park, Cypress Hollow as well. Those each have playgrounds. So we don't want to hamstring ourselves and not be able to upgrade those playgrounds, because those are easy wins and really, hopefully are some of the things that happen first on this. And like Belveron Mini Park should be opportunities for basketball and other things. So I think, there has to be some ironing out with respect to kind of those three categories, so we don't unnecessarily hamstring, being able to do things quickly in those few parks.
If I could just, I think answering the question that you have on that, Chair Judge, and also echoed with Commissioner Burr, is that you're seeing a tension in the neighborhoods between R2 and R4. That, and I think you've hit on it a little bit, is that some folks, Cypress Hollow, I think we do need to go back to the consultant and say, like, it already has a playground structure on it. It's already there. And then just a question came out on the discussion from the members of the community. There actually used to be a porta-john there that the town put in, and then the community members said, please take it out. So there wasn't really a public discussion on that. So that happened, Angela, 5 years ago, I think. Yeah, it was 5. It was pre-pandemic. But I think you're seeing the tension with the neighborhoods, and I think that will be an interesting point for the discussion with town council. And is maybe there's a zoning of R2/R4, right? And then let the community members discuss that. And I've heard anecdotally from members in the Bel Air community that there's some folks that are like, yes, we'd love to have a little bit more amenities, and there's other folks that are like, no, keep the grass high, and that's the way I like it. So I think there's a tension there, and it's not a bad tension, but there's a tension.
If I may bring up another topic, can we talk a little bit about the Old Rail Trail and the lanes concept? I interpreted that as moving some of the bike traffic onto Tiburon Boulevard, and like safety obviously has to be a big part of this. Since our last meeting, I've had 2 run-ins, one of which I was running with my headphones in, maybe partially my fault. The other one was with my kids in a stroller, and it's unbelievable the people's need to try to like race through that area. Obviously when you have different modes of travel, you're going to have conflict, but I mean, it's unbelievable to me what we continue to see out there. It's not just on the weekends, it can be during the week too, with people aggressively, primarily it comes from people speed riding their bike through there. And it's just so unfortunate. So I envision that it's not that like we're creating a fast lane, slow lane, like multiple lanes out there. That was a reference more to moving that fast bike traffic. I got to go check out that sign in Mill Valley where they push people towards the high school. I haven't been over there in a minute. But Chuck, any comment on that?
Yeah, and I probably should have, I use that as an example of just how they've kind of tried to move different traffic. And the consultant's suggestion was actually to try to move some of the traffic where possible off Old Rail Trail toward the bay, on the Bay Trail side. So you wouldn't have the choke point to the directly to, and I'm just, to the east of McKegney Green. So where you come down from off of Stewart and that path there that goes out to the trestle and up on that upper side, that would be pedestrian only, and then the bicycle could potentially be bicycle only down on which right now it's a dirt trail toward the bay, and trying
Yeah.
to split the traffic out. It's obviously, again, all this is like conceptual, but the point is that yes, there's a lot of congestion, particularly in some of those narrower areas that people don't feel safe. I'm interested, was it right there by McKegney?
No, yeah. So sometimes traffic naturally creates people needing to slow down. And I feel like often where I'm talking about these sort of conflicts happen so from south of the Knoll down to San Rafael Boulevard, like that stretch.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like tends to be where people start to speed up again. You know, they might enter town and they kind of get past Blackie's pasture, and there tends to be some traffic in that little area. I don't personally love the idea of paving the area down by the bay down there. I would prefer, if it's feasible, to start to push people who feel the need to go 20 miles per hour through Tiburon, which I don't understand, particularly with kids and other folks of all ages around. I don't know if most of these people are living in town or if they're just kind of trying to, top their last time they came through town. But it would be nice as part of this study with Caltrans to start to find a way to push some of that traffic onto Tiburon Boulevard. And I'm very aware that could create other issues and other mode conflicts, travel conflicts down the line. But something has to be done. We've talked about this ad nauseum since I've been on this commission. The signs, I think, help to a degree, and we had the temporary signs like down by McKegney, which I also think kind of helped, but it's like people forget about those signs as soon as they get past south of the Knoll Park and start to speed up again.
No, that's good feedback. And I think that, David, when do the temporary signs come out regarding slowing down? And is that when school starts?
School, yes.
And I know that the speed limit sign that's on the path toward the Belvedere Tennis Club, I know that certain teenagers try to see how fast they can go on that. So like encouraging bad behavior.
And then while I'm on a roll, and I don't plan on submitting written comments, so I'm just gonna lay it out now on the SUP and kayak launch. It does seem like we have to continue to try to coordinate with with Belveron. I've thought a lot about this. I personally launch SUPs all the time down at Blackie's when the Richardson Bay is open. There are some areas down there where it might make sense. You don't necessarily need a launch down there, but it would be nice if we could put one at Bramble Park and figure out a way to even create a way where people might enter there, paddle down to Blackie's and use that space a lot more in terms of the waterfront, because we don't see people in the waterfront down there all that much between where Bramble Park is and McKegney. So that would be an ideal place. I don't see a kayak launch downtown. Somebody made a comment about Raccoon Street. We've talked about it a lot. I just don't see that as realistic. But it is a top priority for me. And then we'll have the mic. I just can't, again, thanks to the parents who are out here tonight. It was also cool to see in the images on the deck, what looked like teens, preteens, clearly thinking about these issues. And I'm hoping that we continue to take this opportunity to incorporate them and these kids into this process so they can understand that, their feedback really does have an impact. As everybody here knows, new playgrounds, that's basic. That has to be done in this town. We've talked about that quite a bit. And I think that's where we need to press first on those easy wins with respect to updating the playgrounds. We have a lot of expertise locally. It was a good point on Reed and those being plastic, and we really do need to emulate what they've been able to do in San Francisco. I think it's cool that Belvedere is considering adding slides over in that park, as Commissioner Hornbrook mentioned. So we got to look for these creative ways to get easy wins. And just to have it on the record again, I do think that creating an area, whether it be a skate park of some kind, or a pump track, within the designated zones, those don't necessarily take up a lot of space. The other cities, who have them, from Truckee to Capitola to Santa Cruz, Aptos, they're getting used. And honestly, it's a lot of children in there who are getting used and comfortable to riding bikes before they move on to bigger features. And I really think like that, those will create an opportunity for those middle school kids to high school kids to start to congregate and really come together. And so those are the types of spaces that I'm encouraged, because that obviously has been a low priority through most of the responses that we've seen so far with respect to online. But seeing that as soon as we were out in the community, out at Friday Night in Maine, and that being one of the top recommendations, is exactly why we have to continue to get community feedback. So I'll stop there.
Just a question on the zonings, with the stand-up paddleboard launch, with the potential areas where we could put a launch, does this zoning prevent a launch from being in like in an E zone, for example, which looks like runs all the way along Richardson Bay Lineal Park? I don't know where the top locations are right now, potentially for SUPs, but I'm just wondering if the zoning is going to conflict with where we can put it.
I mean, potentially that would be, we need to be clear on what that means.
I don't want to give away my launch spot. It's not right at it's not right there at Greenwood Beach, but kind of in the corner right there. So I'm looking at slide, what is this slide? 26. Just kind of where there's that corner, there's a couple small, like little unused beaches right there. You never see anybody out there. That's where I go launch. And you kind of come over that hill before you get to McKegney Green. And there aren't, like, if we were going to put a launch anywhere down in that region, I think that sliver of land creates a little bit of an opportunity. I couldn't see, I wouldn't necessarily see one down like on Greenwood Beach proper. But to me, overall, the spot that makes the most sense has to be blanking on the name of the beach, right in Bramble Park, because that would create year-round opportunities, because you could launch at Bramble, and I think it's just on the cusp of the Bramble Park.
No idea.
That's where San Rafael, I don't know, I learned about it.
Oh, yeah.
That's where San Rafael meets Tiburon Boulevard. So, you cut the right, it's in Belvedere, so it's not in town. So it's okay if you don't know which park that is. But you could launch there and I think be outside of the closed zone with respect to the Audubon closure.
I mean, I think
I don't know that for certain,
yeah,
but it's
I think we
close
looked
enough.
at that. I think actually the town of Tiburon actually maintains that park, right where San Rafael Avenue splits off from Tiburon.
It's called, on this map, I think it's called Cypress.
It's called
Grove
Cypress.
Garden Park.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. But there is a good place there. There's a lot of sediment that comes down from the creek from down Owl Creek. Yeah.
Do we maintain that park, David? Oh, okay.
It's classified R4 right now.
But it is not in the town of Tiburon proper. Is that correct?
It is.
It is.
But it is in the Richardson Bay bird sanctuary. Because I've launched a kayak at where San Rafael banks left and then East Shore goes off. There's some riprap right there, and you can walk down into there, and I've launched my kayak off of there.
Are there any other places, to Commissioner Moon's question, that are up for consideration for a launch?
I mean, the other place that they've talked about downtown was where, and that's why we need there's coordination with the city of Belvedere, is where Beach and Main come together. There's currently, under the capital improvement plan, there's a drawbridge, which you can go and find in some old things that goes from Corinthian Island at the end of Main Street to beach. There's actually a bridge there connecting the two, and if you go look at old you can find that drawbridge. They're improving that. And then there's a little beach right there in the corner, and there is sand, and during low tide, you can see it for sure. But the challenge with that is it's in Belvedere, and there would have to be some coordination with everybody in yeah, you pulled it up on the,
Yeah.
so that's a great beach. That's a great launch, but there's a lot of, there's a lot of work that would need to be done with Belvedere and other things. And to be able to do it, you need to have enough steps for rise and run to run the steps from the up there. And you're up about, I think that picture, David, that you had in your capital improvements plan with those guys were like 6 feet tall. So it's about 8 feet up from 8 or 9 feet up from the sand up to the road level. So rise and run. I think I did I can't remember my comments that I sent to you guys on that. You can go see the comments from Citizen Hornbrook to the town on their CIP plan. I'll send it to you, Tim.
That whole area.
Yeah.
Is all, well, going back to Commissioner Bird, that is all town of Tiburon right by San Rafael. Even as you make the turn around the bend.
Okay, got it.
So it might be like half the year access, but it's town of Tiburon.
As soon as the wind stops and the bay is flat, that's when you can't paddle.
Yeah. But then it needs to be dredged though too, because there's a fair amount of sediment that comes down that creek. So but that's,
Well, we should just
those
make
are the places.
Yeah, we should make sure just wherever the potential spots are that we don't necessarily get in a pickle on how we.
Fair point.
Yeah.
Fair point.
I mean, the other comment I'd make is I know it's out of the box, but I think it's a great idea. The underutilized parking lots in downtown is flat land. I don't know what those guys are thinking. I think they're land banking to do a residential development at some point, and maybe it affects our home count for the state of California, but it is worth looking into. Because it has parking, it has a lot of flat land, and it's going to require a bond anyways to do a 20 or $30 million type of thing. So having a purchase of the property incorporated into that probably makes a lot more sense than maybe some of the other areas that we're thinking about for a magnitude project like that.
Okay. Is that all for comments? If so, then
I only have a quick teeny tiny comment. Super excited about the people that are willing to share their expertise with the town and this subcommittee. And I encourage you to reach out to David to share all your knowledge. And also super excited about the number of volunteers and people that are getting involved and wanting to share their thoughts and their passion behind improving Tiburon's parks and open spaces and maintaining as well our natural spaces. And I just applaud anyone who has been to our meetings, anyone who has written in, anyone who has been there in the chamber today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for taking the time to share your thoughts and visions. And it means a lot because we started out pretty slow, and I'm really encouraged that we're gaining steam and getting a lot more public comment and public input. And that's what our mission has been from day one. And so keep it coming, and we want to hear more, and we want to hear from you. So thank you.
with that's great word to end this item on. So we don't have an action, so we're going to move to the next item on the agenda, which is listed as an action item. It's the McKegney Green Field Use Policy. Before we get into that, so we have a subcommittee that's going to provide an update to the commission on our work looking into a series of sort of challenges and complaints about field use at McKegney Green. At the top of this, so Michael and I are on the subcommittee, And I can summarize where we are right now, but at the top of this, I'm gonna say that what we're proposing we do is a series of sort of offline continuing conversations with the stakeholders and putting this to a vote in the next post meeting. So in the next post meeting, I hope to be able to bring, after we've had more conversations with the stakeholders, we've talked to them all. We understand the nature of their challenges. At the next meeting, I would like to bring recommendations on some small policy changes to the McKegney Greenfield use policy. So the next meeting is when we would take the action of voting. And this meeting is just to provide updates on where we are and some of the natures, just a light update on the nature of the challenges. So with that, I think I can just jump right in. I'm going to try to keep it super brief because we've been here for a little while, and we're not going to take action till next meeting anyway. But the gist of the situation is that demand for McKegney Green is greater than supply. There is only one field in this town, and there are multiple stakeholders and sports leagues who want to use it. I think you all know this. I think you've all had conversations with these stakeholders, so you have a sense of the challenges. What we need to do is find a really fair policy, a really fair way of handling use, and that is going to be a little bit challenging, but I think we can do it. There's been a little bit of friction, I think, between some of the stakeholders recently. But most of that, from my conversations with the stakeholders, I think stems from some basic misunderstandings. So I think what it seems to me is that there's some misunderstandings and misperceptions that we can probably pretty easily clear up, let's hope. At the end of the day, we will need to ask the soccer league and the lacrosse league to bring goodwill toward each other and to be willing to reach a fair policy. There's a few different ways we can slice the policy to make it fair. One of the ways is, so soccer and lacrosse are the main stakeholders who are competing for use of the field. There's a couple other stakeholders who want use of the field too, and we need to factor them in. Right now, the current policy doesn't factor the other stakeholders in at all. So there's the ranch, which would love to program adult programming, classes, clinics, all sorts of different things could happen on the field that the ranch could program. Right now, the policy only says the field is for use by youth, not adults. I think we can change that. The field is available at certain times that the ranch could use it. They also could use it when neither of the sports leagues needs it, which is extremely rare, but does happen. And so that we need to figure that out. Both of the sports leagues that are competing for use, that seem to be the main competition for use on the field, have different main seasons, and that is great. Soccer is fall, lacrosse is spring. They both want to use it in the alternate season, but they're both fairly flexible, I think, in terms of how. And there are some different ways, as I said, there's some different ways we could slice it, including one team gets exclusive use for its main season and no use for the alternative season, and vice versa. Or one team gets primary use and there's a portion of the field that is always available to the other team, and it flips for their alternate seasons. Any which way we do it, what Michael and I would like to do is try to reach consensus, is work with the teams and try to reach agreement and consensus so that we actually have their agreement on this, we have their endorsement on it, We don't want to just force something. But at the end of the day, we do want a reciprocal agreement. So it's not fair for one team, for one league to get much more use than the other league. Unless there's one exception, unless like the numbers of players are totally different and we're looking at sort of sheer volumes of players on a field that we need to manage for, and that could be a component. All this to say, we propose we talk to these groups a little more, maybe have some bilateral conversations with each team in the town, because I think there's some misunderstandings about how the town is managing it as well. Maybe have a joint conversation with all the stakeholders, but we'll see. And that's the proposal. Anything, Michael, that you would add to that?
Maybe just throw them all into a big steel cage and see who comes out. I think that was great.
And that does remind me, and if any of them have hung on and are listening or watched the recording, I will just say I want to repeat that let's try to do this as nicely as possible as good neighbors. We need to model that for the kids. This is about the kids playing sports. We need to model that good behavior for the kids. So with that, we'll come back to those stakeholders. We'll talk, we'll try to get to a great modeling of good neighbor behavior. And we'll try to get to something that all groups can agree on and that feels really reciprocal or at least fair. Yeah. All right.
Perfect.
That's an update. So we do have to move to commissioner questions. So like questions from all of you.
Just a real quick comment that kudos to both of you for taking this on. You are now the third group of posts that I'm aware of. Park Allen was the first to break the bread with those, and then I think maybe Angela and Isaac, or I can't. Yeah, thought so. So I think that to your underscoring the point of like, let's be good neighbors, and it's about the kids. So thank you for taking that on. Appreciate it.
And the only other thing I'll add is, and I can't remember if I said this last meeting, I don't know if any of you made it out when there was the piano concert down there at the south end of McKegney Green. That was awesome. I mean, it was fun. It was so fantastic to see all the community out there. And so it struck me that like all the concerns we've had in years past about the use and noise and all that stuff, none of that came to fruition. It was amazing to see. I know this is outside of the scope of this, but having some flexibility in that, it goes a long way in bringing people together. But you have a more tough task right in front of you. So thank you for the report on it.
Yeah, thank you for the report. I have one short comment, in that it is the name of the field, and it is McKegney Green. It is not McKegney Soccer Field. It is not McKegney Lacrosse Field. It is not like McKegney Football Field. It is a community green. It is a community field, and that's what it should be.
Hear, hear. Indeed. Anything else on this? And we can move to public comment if we have any.
I see none.
Okay. The parties I did notify them that, or most of them, that we wouldn't be voting on anything today and we would be talking with them more. So,
I will say that Kim from soccer did contact me. She wanted to be here tonight. She may be probably already is a grandma right now, so she's at the hospital, so she couldn't make it, but she wanted me to let you folks know that.
awesome. Congrats to her. Yeah. So, and I talked to her about that too. So this was just an update. She's aware of all this. And we'll come back in the next meeting with some concrete action steps. Thank you all. With that, I think we can adjourn
One more. We have the chair and vice chair election
Oh,
for
that's right.
fiscal year 24-25.
Excellent. Excellent. So we have to appoint a new chair and a new vice chair and when does what's the term, like, when does it start?
It starts actually from this evening. 'Cause the new
Okay.
chair will adjourn the meeting and it's until next year this time.
Okay, this is fantastic. Um,
So the way it works is the current chair will start the nomination, and then we get a second and then roll call. And then the new chair takes the chair position, and then the new chair will take nominations for a vice chair.
okay, repeat that, then,
So right now you'll
Okay,
take,
got it.
yeah, you'll
I'm
take
with you.
nominations, yeah, for
Right.
a chair. And you can open it up for discussion if any of the commissioners want to add something, say something. And we open it up for public comment too.
I would like to invite anyone on the commission to make a nomination or a suggestion.
I nominate Vice Chair Hornbrook for chairman.
Second.
Excellent.
Vice Chair Holmbrook, do you accept it?
Yes, I do.
Okay. We'll public comment, we'll open up for public comment. I see none, so I will take roll call. Chair Judge,
Yes.
Vice
I
Chair
support that.
Holmbrook,
Yes.
Commissioner Burr,
Yes.
Commissioner Moon,
Yes.
Commissioner McInerney.
Yes.
Motion passes. Congratulations, Chair Holmbrook.
Thank
So
you.
now we start with Chair Holmbrook taking nominations for vice chair, opening it up.
I will, but my first act, I'd like to actually thank former Chair Judge for all the great work you've done over the past year. Thank you for doing that. It's incredibly hard to do that and to keep things moving forward. And I thought you've done a great job.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good job.
And the first act, I'd like to open up the floor for nominations for vice chair.
I would, if I may be recognized, I would nominate Commissioner Moon for vice chair.
I second that.
Commissioner Moon, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
All right, I will take roll call. Chair Holmbrook,
Yes.
Vice Chair Moon.
Oh, no, he's not yet. He's not the vice.
He's not, I'm sorry, God.
Nobody.
Yeah, there's
Gotcha.
Commissioner Moon,
Yes.
Commissioner Judge,
Yes.
Commissioner Burr,
Yes.
and Commissioner McInerney.
Yes.
Congratulations. Now we have Vice Chair Moon.
Congratulations, Vice Chairman.
Okay, well, with that, I think I get to adjourn the meeting.
You may. I
You-
recognize Commissioner.
Yeah,
Judge
please
to-
let me hit the gavel for the last time. All right, thank you. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Midnight here. Gotta go.
See ya, Angela.
Thank
Night.
you.
Where's?